Hello and welcome to Geek First Sidequest, your weekly stop for video game news, reviews, and more here on the Geek First Podcast Network. I'm your host, the patient plotter, Dylan Moss, and I have with me the Spider Boy, Kirkland Patzer, on this fine Monday night for some Sidequest goodness. How's it going, my friend?
It's going very good. I went to the grocery store earlier and I grabbed a case of ginger ale. And as I was walking to the car, the box just ripped on me and all my cans just fell all over the parking lot. And I was so mad. And that was like the low point of the day. So it's been a pretty good day, all things considered.
Did they burst open or did they just roll around?
Just rolled around, no bursting. I would have probably ran back into the store and demanded, I don't know. I don't even know what I could have demanded at that point. I was just seeing red. But there was 4 cans that had some crazy protrusions. They were just about to burst, but it didn't quite happen. But yeah, that was the lowest point of my day. So overall, I've had a good day and I cannot wait to talk about the things that we're going to be talking about here today.
Yeah, it could have been worse. They could have all busted open. You could have accidentally slipped on one, like a banana peel moment, and just cracked your head. But,
exactly. Lose my other groceries. Got soaked by the ginger ale. Yeah, it was.
Some ginger ale bandit comes in and grabs them from the ground.
Yeah, that was my chance. He dropped him. Let's go.
We've been waiting for another one all week. But yeah, anyway, we have a very, very exciting episode here. We are going to break down the Nintendo Direct from last week as well as the Sony State of Play. And then we have a bunch of games to talk about as well. Primarily Marvel Snap for 2 reasons. We're going to be talking about that today. And then I have another game, and I think you might have another game as well. So a lot to get into. Just a couple quick shout-outs here. Next week, well, actually, I should confirm this with you. Kirkland, are you still picking up Mortal Kombat 1?
I actually already own it. I got the early release. So yeah, I got it. I've been playing it over the weekend. I wasn't going to talk about it too much over this, my games we've been playing because I wanted to save it. And we do have a very thick, juicy podcast already. But yes, I can confirm I do have it already.
I originally had this week as the Mortal Kombat week. And then Travis was like, oh, that's an early access thing. We're not getting that. So I was like, okay, I guess I'll push that back a week. But honestly, it all works out because these, covering this direct and whatnot, the timing works out. So next week will be that big, juicy episode on Mortal Kombat. Just with your thumb. And actually, that's not good for an audio listener. Just make one syllable noise to demonstrate how much you're enjoying the game.
What would I choose? Yeah.
Okay, there you go.
Yeah, I did throw a thumb in there too. That's just that's for the visual.
If anyone has any questions or thoughts, or they're playing too and want to share that with us, let us know. We'll include that in the episode. Drop it in YouTube or come to our Discord or Patreon if you want. If you go to Patreon, you also get episodes early and ad free. Leave a review for Sidequest. That helps us out. And other than that, there's just the classic stuff. Ahsoka's happening on the main feed. We're doing our newscast as per usual. X-Men retrospectives finally hitting that free feed out there, and I think Loki starts pretty soon, right? So it's a good busy time here in the geek world. We do have a lot of video games to talk about, but Kirkland, I love sharing with you the not bad purchases that I make, but the purchases that I don't need, but I get anyway. And I don't know if you've heard about this, but recently, I think this year, there was a partnership announced between Magic the Gathering and Lord of the Rings. Where they
I did hear about this, yes.
Where they've made a bunch of Magic cards that are, Lord of the Rings characters and places and all that.
I only know this because Post Malone recently got the $2 million, the one ring. I think it's ring. 1 of 1. You can only get the one card. So that kind of put it on my radar. And I'm like, I don't even know that they crossed over into Lord of the Rings. That was new to me. But I mean, as you're saying right now, it sounds like they did a unique partnership.
Yeah, I think it was a pretty fresh thing. So anyway, over the weekend, I don't play Magic. I have a few cards, but I'm more of a Yu-Gi-Oh guy, but I don't even play that these days anymore. But I picked up 3 of these packs. These Lord of the Rings booster packs. 2 of them I opened, and I got some cool stuff in here. I got a lot of Shire-based things. Okay. So I have a nice Shire Terrace here.
Oh, nice.
I'll commentate this. Sorry for the audio listeners who are not on YouTube. We got Bilbo, the retired burglar here. My camera's a bit grainy, but maybe I'll show you these in person at some point. What else?
Wonder if there's a different Bilbo, like pre-retired Bilbo.
Peregrine Took. I think there is different versions, and there's definitely variants just on visuals. Merry Esquire of Rohan here.
That's a sick visual. Battle. I like the detail that they throw in there.
And I really like this one. Frodo is looking pretty. He's looking pretty cool. I mean, once again, low quality on my camera here, and then my boy Gollum, the patient plotter,
Oh,
down
that's
there
your
in
name.
the depths.
Okay, nice.
But Kirkland, I saved one of these packs so that I could open it live on
Oh my
cast with you
gosh.
here, and we can
I
do
got
a live
goosebumps.
unpacking.
I literally just got goosebumps with you saying that.
So I'm kind of hoping for a Gandalf. That would be my ideal, but honestly, I think with whatever I get, I'll be pretty happy.
Who knows? Maybe you'll get like that $2 million card that's just super rare, and then
It already sold Post Malone.
Well, there's another one. There's gotta be another one that's worth at least that 1 million.
Right. Okay, first card here. We got Orc Army. This is just like a token card.
Ooh, okay.
That's looking pretty nice. The
Couple rough
Dunedain
guys.
Blade. Dunedain Blade.
Oh, I like
How's
that.
that pronounced? You could pronounce it better than me.
The Dunedain.
The sword. This is a shiny one. Actually, it's a foil. It's kind of hard to tell with the camera, but
It's not Anduriel though, right? It's not Aragorn's sword.
No, I don't think so. This is a bit wider, and it has like a blue gem.
Just a sword of the Dunedain. Okay.
Yeah. The sword glinted in the western sun. Okay.
Damn, I like that.
Whoa, I don't know what this is. It's called There and Back Again, and I've never seen a Magic
Hobbit's
card
Tale.
that looks like this before.
That's a lot of text. Is that like supposed to be like the story, like There and Back Again? Because that's like what the original Hobbit tale what would have been, right? Like what Bilbo wrote.
Yeah, so like I said, I'm not a huge Magic guy, so I don't even know what this card is. But let me read. So as this saga enters, and after you draw step, add a lore counter. This is like a lore card or something. There's 3 phases. Up to 1 target creature can't block for as long as you control There and Back Again. And the ring tempts you. This is a whole mechanic in these Lord of the Rings cards. This is the ring tempting Frodo and Bilbo and whatnot. I don't know exactly how that works, but it's a thing. Search your library for a mountain card. Put it on the battlefield, then shuffle. And then the third step here is create Smaug, a legendary 6/6 red dragon creature token with a flying haste. When he dies, create 14 treasure tokens. So yeah, I don't know how this would work in a game sense, but this is very interesting. It's like a 3-tiered card almost.
Damn. That's it's interesting hearing this, knowing absolutely nothing about Magic.
We got another Mary, Esquire of Rohan, a completely different art this time too, actually.
It's like a black edition or something. I
wonder
like
if that's
that.
the same. Let me see if it's the same like stats and whatnot. It looks to be the same stats and whatnot. So it's just like a different variant. That's very cool.
Interesting.
Yo, we
What's
got
he got?
Rosie Cotton of
Oh,
Southlake.
Rosie. There you go.
That's hilarious. Oh, Samwise, the stout-hearted.
Oh, yeah, there you go. Can't have Rosie without
I'm getting
Samwise.
all the hobbits. All the hobbits here.
You could have like a theme deck, you know?
I really could. I really could. This is another multi thing. The Tale of Tenuviel. Do you know that word?
The Tale of Tenuviel.
Oh, I think this is like the Aragorn and my God, I think that's their story.
Like
Aragorn and Arwen. It
yeah,
seems like it.
Baron Luthien, like that sort of love
yeah,
story.
you're life linking 2 characters, so it's something like you're.
There you go. It must be.
Yeah, that's
about
cool.
That. That's cool.
The Gift of Strands. I don't know what that's about.
That would have been the strands that.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, for Gimli. That's Gimli right there.
Yeah, Galadriel gifted to Gimli.
I did get Galadriel's vial, or what is it
Oh,
called?
nice.
File, whatever it's called.
File. I think that sounds right. Like the light, right? That Frodo gets. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
We got the Mortar Trebuchet here.
Ooh.
I'm into that. That's pretty cool.
Some artillery. You got a versatile deck.
Yeah.
You got some hobbits.
We got a spell here called Rush the Room. I don't know if this is like in the Mines of Moria, but it's some goblins and shit just attacking some orcs. So that's interesting.
Great spell name. Rush the room.
We got Olog High Crusher. Or Ulog High, perhaps. Not an orc I recognize, but probably exists. Or he's
Almost looks like a troll
fictional.
or something, eh? Like a big guy, or is it?
Actually, I think you're right. I
Okay.
think that is a troll. And
Troll
we
name.
we have Revive the Shire. So once again, my Shire theme over here.
Nice.
And
Can bring it
then
back.
a good old fashioned Plains card, just a nice land card here.
Pretty.
That's good.
Nice.
I'm happy with that. Some good cards there. I really have the Shire collection, which is cool. I'm into it.
I like that a lot. Yeah. I just as you're going, I was googling on like how many just Magic the Gathering cards there are, and apparently there's over 25,000 unique Magic cards in rotation, which just blows my mind. I knew it was an in-depth like game that people just it's like a lifestyle sort of game.
It's insane. Well, it kind of makes sense because I think the traditional format is. Well, there's all sorts of different formats, but you like even the most simple standard one is like 60 cards in a deck, and I think 100 cards in a deck is another popular variant. So it's like obviously that's a lot of cards right there. You got to have a ton just to make a basic deck in the first place. How many Lord of the Rings ones is there? Can you Google that? Because I feel like there's probably like maybe even 50 of them. Because I feel like I have so many things I haven't seen yet. Just in my 3 packs that I got here, and there was like a starter deck you could get that like gives you a full deck with guaranteed cards, but that was kind of expensive, so I just got 3 packs instead.
It's just 281 regular cards.
That's
so
insane.
That is a very big number, a lot more than I was expecting. It does say that like hundreds of Magic cards are added every year too, so like the 25,000.
And then when you factor in the variants too, these multiple Marys and stuff, that's insane.
But like if it's 281 regular, like is there like super uniques? Like with the one ring, like would that be a non-regular card?
Well, I think it might be like for example, this Orc Army. Like that's not a regular card. Like it's like a token. And you can use like anything as a token. Like I actually got another one that's food, and it's just literally Frodo like covered in Shelob's web, and it's just a food token that you could use for any deck. You know, it doesn't have like unique stats of its own kind. So maybe that's what they mean for that differentiation there.
Interesting. Nice.
Thanks
for sharing that with me. I felt
that was fun.
Yeah, we bonded there over that.
I love opening a card pack. But speaking of cards and card games. Marvel Snap is top of mind, of course. This game came out, I think it's out of beta about a year ago now. It's kind of crazy. And we talked about it on Sidequest a bit when it first came out. And then since I was the only one playing, I did a couple solo episodes where I went through some of my favorite decks, shared some strategies and whatnot. And here we are again, but I don't have to talk to myself in front of my computer anymore because Kirkland, you have been jumping into Marvel Snap for the last few weeks, getting in the weeds. You've been hopping in the Discord on our server there and chatting to us about your experience and all that. So how was your time? Because I know you checked it out a little bit. Like I feel like when it first came out, and then you just fell off. But now you're, I'd say like pretty into it, like into the grind of it, into like the ritual, the habit of it almost. So, how's that going?
It is a daily play for me. I think I've played every single day. I don't want to say like multiple hours because like I don't know how many games I play in a row, but it's definitely every single day I'm doing those dailies and just getting that dopamine rush when I'm unlocking like a new mystery card. But no, I've been having so much fun with it. I've been getting like just really, really confident with my certain decks. I was telling you a little bit off cast. It's just funny how like confident I get in my deck. I'm like, I don't think I can lose. And then you run into like the perfect counter to your deck. It's like this deck sucks. I'm never gonna use this one again. I got to start from scratch. But no, I've loved everything about it. Honestly, I love all the like the details of the cards. I'm interacting with so many Marvel heroes that like I didn't even know about, but then the ones that I am familiar with, it's like, oh, okay, because I love this character so much, like this is gonna be a main rotation. And then it's funny how you just, I don't know, you unlock a newer one, it's like, this is kind of bottom of the barrel now. Like Spider Woman, that was my main card for like the longest time, and I haven't even had her in one of my decks in forever. And it's not because I don't like the card or like Spider Woman, it's just I found some other ones that work better with the specific deck that I'm going with now. So right now I'm my collection level is 346.
Okay.
It's probably pretty low compared to people that have been playing quite a lot, but like I don't know. It's been
I'm
like
gonna open mine up and see what number I'm at.
Yeah,
it's definitely a lot higher than that. I've been playing daily for months, so yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Like I think it's been like a week or whatever. Like Starfield release, I think that when everybody was talking about that's when I was like, well, I'm just gonna get Marvel Snap and play this. So, but I have been playing daily. I hit platinum and then like lost a few rounds. I was getting aggressive with the double down on the snaps.
Yes.
But
yeah, I'm at like 5,500 right now.
Yeah. Okay. There you go. I was proud. I'm like, oh my god, I'm
already
at 296
in comparison to some others. So.
Oh, I'm sure. Yeah. But no, I've just liked the whole cycle of it. Like I really just like how like simple it like it's, you know, it's if you've played like Hearthstone or Gwent or like those types of card games, I think there's a certain appeal that it's simplistic enough to get into, but just the depth on like how many factors there are is something that's just so appealing to me. I love strategy games, and this is just another version of that. And this is definitely the one that I've I've just been attached to the most, and I think it is because of all the factors as well as it having that Marvel skin to it. Like there's still so many cards that I interact with, or maybe I have a card that pulls just a completely random one in there. I'm like, oh, I can't wait to like actually have that card. So just like that, like hunger for more cards has definitely been something that's just kept me going on it. But also just, I don't know, I feel like they do a really good job at delivering the cards to you in a proper order, so that you can actually have like a deck that complements each other card. Like I remember the first time I found a card that like destroys another card, and I'm like, what the fuck is that? That sounds so stupid. Why would you ever want to do that? And then, you know, you get Nova or Wolverine or something. You're like, oh, okay, I get it now. And then that was another like big ticking point of like, holy crap. Like I don't know. I thought I had like a very jack of all trades deck maybe that covers all bases. And then now I find like it really just fun and interesting to like kind of go in that direction of like you kind of have your specialty, like maybe you're an on reveal sort of play style. And it's also like when they have those hot locations in rotation, then I kind of tweak my deck a little bit to abuse that, somewhat of a meta shift, I guess you could call it.
So are you a single deck kind of guy here? You're just like really honing the one, because I understand that's what I did for a good while playing the game too, so it wouldn't shock me. But yeah, where are you at right now with that?
So right now, I'll pull it up right now. I have 6 decks. Okay. 5 is not actually complete. I like started making it, and then I'm like, I think I need some like different cards to kind of supplement this right now. Yeah. But for the longest time, probably like, I don't know, first 3 days or something, I only had the one deck, and then like I would keep like doing subs or something. You know, like take this card out, throw this one in, and then what I was doing with my mindset there is I would just use it until I was just finding like a really good opposition that was just bopping me, and it's like, okay, this is not going to win anymore. I'm not going to delete this deck because I did have a lot of success with it, and I do really like it still. So then that's what made me start the new deck. Or maybe like one of my favorite decks at the time, I don't really use it anymore, was like the heavy discard one where you have like Carnage, you have Deathlock in there, Wolverine, I had Sabretooth, Nova, and just like every card kind of has an answer to like boost the other ones. That was a really, really fun one. And then right now, what am I using? Let me pull up my current deck.
I think that's interesting. Like you can have up to 20 decks, and I've hit that maximum so many times. And I've been more aggressive with deleting decks nowadays to make room for like fresh things and want to try out new cards. But there's my first 2 decks, so you can't change the order of them. My first 2 are still just like a basic ongoing deck with like Spectrum on turn 6 to boost all the ongoing cards. And then like a 1 cost deck that like Khazar and like Blue Marvel just like boost all those cards. And you know, I've shuffled in new cards that are relevant there, and like, a better 1 cost cards come out, I drop them in there. But it's cool when I scroll all the way to the left, like I still have those 2 very core decks, and especially the ongoing one is almost completely cards that you'll get in like those are like even where you're at in the game. It's cool that, and that can still compete too. Like maybe not at like the high ranker necessarily, but it still like is very consistent. People don't see it coming anymore at my rank because people are like, I'm over that kind of deck now. But I sometimes like going back to basics with those like early game cards.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I mean, that's kind of what I was saying earlier, whereas like I maybe you think that you have all bases covered, and then someone has like a really hardcore control deck, and they have Cosmo or Enchantress or something that just like is disabling your entire hand, and you're like, well, I just have to run away. Like I think I cannot even compete with this. I really like having Scarlet Witch in my deck. She's not in my current one just because there is some locations that can really ruin it, like just absolutely ruin you, and you won't be like, some of it's like you just can't play a card here, and then if you don't have like a move card or something to displace it, then you're just completely screwed.
Fuck the Sanctum Sanctorum, man.
I hate that one. So no, absolutely. So right now my current deck, which I haven't found, like I'm not super, I don't know, like I don't think it's complete by any means, but I was doing some subs in and out. But I was wanting to use the collector just for, I don't know, I kept seeing it, and I wanted to make a deck kind of around like just getting more cards and kind of abusing that a little bit. So I have Agent 13, which that's Yelena, right? Is that the case?
I don't think so.
Oh no, okay. I just assumed because of like what she looked like.
Is that not the lady in like Captain America, who's like Captain America's
like that chick, right?
Yeah, I forget who the actress is, but it's like she's in like the Captain America movies, and she's like the fling.
Oh,
That's what
she's
that's
Peggy
always.
Carter's like Sharon
Yeah,
Carter,
is
right?
that not Agent 13? Is
I'm
that
not
right?
sure.
Well,
I just saw
let me
the.
do a quick Google. I'm
Yeah,
actually curious now.
she just had a Yelena-ism to me, so I'm like, okay, that must be her. But maybe it's
Yes,
another
it
card.
is. It is Sharon Carter. Yeah.
Okay, there you
Yeah.
go. And same thing with like White Queen. Like I was like, what character is this? She kind of reminds me of Emma Frost. And then I Googled it. I'm like, okay, it is Emma Frost. That's just like her
Yes, yeah.
her title in the Hellfire Club. So anyways, getting back to it, I have Agent 13, which draws a card. Mantis, which is like the counter card. Collector. Forge, I absolutely love, and I wasn't even using him, but then I used my gold on like a random variant, and that's the one I got. I got the
Nice.
X-Force variant for him. Like, well, I got to use him now, and he's actually like really strong.
Yeah,
I
they
definitely
buffed him
undervalued
recently,
him. Oh,
and
okay.
he's like much better now because I think
Yeah.
they just gave him one extra power like on his ability. So it was he was a 2/1, and then he gave the next card +2, and now I think it's +3, right?
Yeah.
But like that 1 point can do so much for cards that like multiply
Yeah.
power or duplicate, like
Oh yeah.
Mr. Sinister or something like that. So yeah.
No, exactly. And then after Forge, I have Cable. Mr. Fantastic. I'm not super loving him right now. It doesn't like fit so
Right,
much with
yeah.
my hand there, but I wanted something ongoing. I feel like I'm kind of lacking on my ongoing cards, at least in that energy range. Like I wanted a 3-cost card. So that one I've kind of been playing with. And then I have Moon Girl. Duplicates your hand. I threw her in there because I have Devil Dinosaur, which
Yes.
is a very
Great
powerful
combo.
card that I did not realize until I just kept getting bought by them, and I didn't understand how his power just kept getting to like the freaking like 56, and it's like, what? Like, how did that even happen? But anyways, Moon Girl, yeah, Devil Dinosaur, White Queen, Iron Man. I just added. That was another ongoing one that I wanted to mess around with, and
Yeah.
reason being is I have Onslaught in this deck,
Nice.
and then
Okay.
Blue Marvel would be the filler there. So it started as just a deck to kind of work around the collector, and then I wasn't getting collector early enough in like the rounds in like a certain just
You
the way
want
that the
him on
hand
turn
goes.
2. If you don't,
Yeah.
it feels like huge diminishing returns on them.
No, exactly. And that's when I'm like, maybe I should tweak this deck a little bit. So then I added a lot more ongoing cards just to kind of supplement with Blue Marvel as well as Onslaught, which is just, it's so satisfying when it gets to like round 6 and you're able to just like place that Onslaught that boosts Blue Marvel that also boosts like everybody else. And it's just like all of a sudden you win all 3 locations on the final round when you get the snap. Like it's just super, super satisfying. So by no means is this like a complete deck that I'm like super confident I can take anyone on with, but I've just been having a lot of fun with it. And another reason why I wanted to just make another deck versus my previous one, which was like the heavy chaos one, like the discard, I had Carnage in there, Deathlock and all that stuff, is I just had them all like at the same like upgrade range, and I had all these other cards. I'm like, I kind of want to like tweak it up and start boosting some of these other characters, and just obviously building up my collection level. So that was the motivation there. But I did swap back to it, especially depending on like what the hot location at the time is, because there's certain hot locations that can just be incredibly overpowered if you have a certain card that just goes with it so well. And I think that just like all of these things I've been saying has just made it so fun, because it's like I don't have enough time in a day to just sit there and like go through all these things. So it's like, oh, I'm gonna play this card, or sorry, do this hand, and then do a couple matches, and then if I'm having a lot of success, I'll keep going with it. But then I also want to go back just to use those other cards again, and then maybe I'll go against someone that has like a crazy variant of a certain card, and I'm like, oh my god, like that is like I've seen the sickest Carnage variant that I'm like, I don't know how you get that. I don't even know how you get variants. I see like them in the store. I'm assuming that it's just like a rotation thing. Like, do they just cycle them out, or is it just like through the battle pass?
So yeah, there's a bunch of ways. One of them is just every day in the store. There's I guess there's 8 variants that if there's ever like a new variant introduced to the game, they usually go there for a day too.
Oh, okay.
And then there's like the random one you can get. You can also get like a guaranteed one if you do like a bunch of conquest in a month. Like there's a guaranteed variant you can unlock there. And then I guess maybe not at your level. I'm not actually too sure. But when you get later on in the collection level, you'll start like getting variants every once in a while.
Okay.
And then there is like I think in the battle pass you get 2 or 3 like if you get within level 50, which is kind of where you're supposed to get within 1 month's time of playing. There might even be a couple other. Well, I guess from the spotlight caches too, you can get variants from that
Okay.
as well. So yeah, there's quite a few ways to get them.
Yeah. So I think that collection aspect of the game too is just another
Mm-hmm.
big appeal. Like it's just like, oh, I want to get that version of that. And I was looking through the battle pass. I'm not super fond of like this current Loki one. Just like, I don't know, the cards aren't really speaking to me too much. And
Mm-hmm.
I've played against Loki a few times. It doesn't seem like a card that I would really use. But I
It's
could
really
definitely
good
see me.
with collector, but
Oh,
that-
right,
they-
because you steal a whole hand, right? Like
yeah,
the
they
starting
actually
hand?
just nerfed collector because
Great
because
time.
of Loki.
Great time to use
only.
them.
I know, it's funny that you mentioned that because in the kind of deck you're using, I feel like he was perfectly balanced, and that's where he's been for a bit.
Yeah.
Like, they even buffed him like at some point a few months ago to a 2/2. But then with Loki, people are getting collector up to like 15 to like 20 power in a game, and it's like for a 2-cost card that is insane. So they had
Yeah.
to limit Loki by nerfing collector, which is unfortunately something they do if it's like a battle pass card. They don't really want to like nerf it right away if it's
Right.
super strong, so they instead nerf like the cards that enable that battle pass card.
Yeah.
So I don't know what they're gonna do to Loki, if they're gonna change him at all. But yeah, I guess the thing is for you too, when you look at like a season's pass right now, there can be a bit more excitement there because like for people like all the cards, so you'll get Loki, and then there's like 2 other cards, like Enchantress is one. I forget who the other one is in this month. Like those will be cards for like people anywhere near my level. Like you'll always have those second and third card because you get them somewhat early on.
Yep.
But for you there might be like that might be a fresh new card too, so you can maybe
Right.
get more value out of a season's pass because can get multiple cards. Like when I first started playing, it was the Black Panther month. I don't think I had a Koi or a Nakia, so I was like, well, this is a great purchase because I'm going to get 3 new cards instead of the usual 1. And now it's like there's only ever 1 new card if I get the season's pass in a month. But
Right.
that's fine. That's part of it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So yeah, I've been loving the game. Definitely, I've gotten a couple of people that I work with on it, which
Nice.
maybe is not great for work. Sometimes we're sitting there. Oh yeah,
It's
did you
dangerous
win?
because one game is so quick, but then it's like,
Yeah.
can you ever just play one game of Marvel?
But
Snap?
that's also just what's so great about it. Like if I'm doing, I don't know, I'm cooking, I'm waiting for my water to boil, I just do a couple matches right then and there. So I just it's very easy to get into, and I think that's the biggest thing is if it had like a high hurdle just to like jumping into the game, definitely could see myself just tapering off and not really loving it. But as of right now, yeah, I've been playing daily and
Nice.
yeah, I'm loving it.
Yeah, we should definitely do some dueling.
I'm
24
scared.
hours
I'm
stream
scared
time.
for that, especially when you got what is it, the Alioth, whatever that card is.
Yeah,
I've
I
lost
don't know
a
how
few
it's
matches
pronounced.
because of that thing.
I'm going with Eliath because it's like Goliath.
That sounds better. That sounds a lot better. Alioth.
But yeah, that's like the mist dude at the end of the Loki season 1. I think, right? It's like the big mist thing in like that
Okay,
planet,
yeah.
I'm pretty sure. is
Looks
what's
very
going
different on the
there.
card because you're just like a
Yes.
ball.
Yeah, he looks much like smaller. He's like
Yeah.
kind of cute, which is not what that character should be. But yeah, I wanted to bring up Marvel Snap too because for the first time ever in my like almost a year of playing this game, I hit Infinite, which is like the max. It's like it's the maximum, but it's not even the maximum rank because then when you get into Infinite, then it's like this whole other thing, and then it's like here's your position in the whole world, and then someone's got to
okay.
be rank 1 out there, But
Yeah.
I'm down here in like the 70,000s or something like that. I don't know exactly how it works, but yeah, it felt good to finally hit that because most months I don't really care that hard to fight for it, and because like with the way Marvel Snap works, right? It's like you could get to Infinite losing more games than you're winning because it's all about snapping and winning cubes. So if you just retreat tons of games, but then you win an 8-cuber, then you're like good to go. You're gonna like keep climbing up. So it is a weird ranking system in that way. And I've gotten very close in a couple months, like up in the high mid 80s, 90. I think I got to last month, but couldn't quite. My decks just could never quite push into that Infinite. But yeah, with the release of Eliath, I got a really, really solid deck together. And it felt good too because it wasn't just like the first iteration that was super good. Like I changed up multiple cards over the days of like, okay, this could be slightly more optimal. And it pretty much is a control deck, which you had mentioned earlier, where I'm really just trying to close out as many locations as I possibly can so that I can drop Eliath down and just know where my opponent is going to play on turn 6. So I don't have Galactus, but that's been a pretty powerful combo from what I understand is like Galactus turn 5 to just destroy everything, drop Eliath, and then you just like win the game. And it might be a bit cheap. They might even nerf that combo because it seems a little too strong, but I don't have access to it. But instead, this version's really fun, and I'm getting to use like Jean Grey I got when she came out a couple months ago, and like very underwhelming. Could not really find a deck that worked well with her. Like she's for some reason synergizes really well with the Guardians, but like I don't know, it was like a decent deck, but it wasn't really that fun or interesting. But I have her in this deck with a mixture of some Guardians characters with just classic control stuff like Professor X and Storm and Sandman and Electro and whatnot. And it just works wonders. I also have Dr. Doom in the deck, who is an on reveal. He's a 6/5, and he puts another Doom bot into each other location. So you're pretty much just putting 15 power out onto the board across the 3 locations, which is also really good with control decks, because if like Storm has closed a location, and so neither me or my opponent can play there, well, Doom's bot will still fly in there and drop in. So and especially if like on turn 6, if I have Jean Grey down, which forces both players to play their first card in that location every turn, that means like I can just know exactly where they're going to play their card, and I can drop Goliath. Or if I just put Doom there and we're both only putting a card in that one location, well, Doom's going to fill in more power on the other 2 lanes as well. So it just is like has multiple win conditions, which is I think the key to any good deck in Marvel Snap. Is like if you're only looking for one line of cards, you're just not going to get it, because you're not always draw. So to have multiple win conditions, have multiple 6 and 5 cost cards in there, even though you're not going to be able to get all of them in each game, that's the key to victory is what I've found. And
that was a big eye-opening moment for me, honestly, because like my favorite deck that I had was that like just chaotic one where everybody's killing each other. I got Wolverine that just keeps stacking. I had Apocalypse in there with Lady Sif, and it seemed like it worked so well. But then when everything went well, there was still like another deck that just like beat me in the sense. And I'm like, okay, I'm never gonna get like all the perfect like order to get this perfect win condition for me. But then I actually achieved it sometimes, and I was still getting beat. That's when I'm like, hey, I gotta just start from scratch. Like I was so attached to this one specific deck, but I really gotta cover my bases a little bit more. And I think that's where I'm at right now with my most current deck, is just how can I add or maybe take out some cards that'll just help I don't know, cover my bases and then give me multiple win conditions. So it's not just, oh, I didn't get this one card right away. Okay, well, I'm escaping. I'm just going to take the 1 cube loss and try again next round, because that's kind of grimy in my eyes.
Yeah, no, I had that. I feel like destroy decks have always been strong, because you get a lot of those good cards early on, and that's always been like a consistent one for me. But it wasn't until recently that I really got into a discard deck, and that was one that did climb me up to like the 90s. I was able to get a good one, but it was only because like Dakin was the Seasons Pass card last month, and he was a really good addition. And then I finally, after months and months got MODOK and Stature, and so I just had like and X23, like a bunch of new cards influxed in, and so now I could finally do a discard deck that made sense for me, and it was fun to use. Because sometimes you'll just see a deck and you just see it so often that it's like, even if you don't play it, you just feel like I'm like bored of it already, kind of thing. So I was able to find like a cool new one, and I like that strategy now. But it is, it's tricky to get it working properly. It can be a bit finicky, and just hoping for the right discards. It's always the worst thing when you drop Moon Knight and you just destroy it. It removes the one card that you still need in your hand. It's like,
what does Moon Knight do?
Moon Knight just discards a hand from your hand and your opponent's hand, but it's a random card. So it could hit Apocalypse and give you some bonus damage, or it could hit the next enabler that you're going to play next turn. And then you're like, well, okay, well, I guess I'm kind of screwed now.
You reminded me, actually. I had like 2 different variations of the destroy deck, because I had one that was just very like, I knew exactly like I would destroy the cards that I would actually select, and then I kind of spiced it up. I threw in like Blade, which is the discards the one to the far right in your hand, and then the card that you want isn't always right there. I had Swordmaster in there, which just discards one of your cards, and then there'd be some times when I had like Apocalypse and then like, I don't know, Enchantress or something, for example, and it's like, fucking coin toss. I hope I get the right one, which a lot of the time it wouldn't be the case. But it was a nice little change up on the destroyed deck that I had, because it just made it more exciting. It was like I was gambling in those moments. Like if it goes well, it freaking goes well, and if it doesn't, then I'm escaping. I'm running for the hills.
Yeah, no, the discard one that I was building around was very much focused on MODOK, who just discards your entire hand. So obviously it's like a huge gamble. You gotta make sure you're set up. But he's a 5 cost as well. He's a 5/8, so like he has a good power on his own right. And I guess one of the main ideas would be like if you use him on turn 5, you drop him down, good 8 power, and then he hits Apocalypse, and on turn 6 you can play Apocalypse. Like it's a nice combo. But I just built the whole deck around like trying to fill my hand with all the cards that would be beneficial to that. So like sometimes I'd drop a Modok, he'd hit Wolverine, which spawns him onto the field, hit X23, spawns him onto the field, hit Swarm, who duplicates, hit another Swarm, maybe duplicates again, hits Apocalypse. So that my turn 6 was just insane because I had all these cards flying to the board. Apocalypse is up there at like, maybe 16 or 20-ish damage, and then I have a bunch of Swarms in my hand, and I just have free reign, can play all sorts of stuff. It's so satisfying when it works properly.
You named a lot of cards that I don't have yet, so I can definitely see myself going back to that discard, destroy play style, which it is very satisfying. But it is funny that what you mentioned is just when you see the same decks that you're kind of facing with, and I now as soon as I see like someone drop a Nova and then a Carnage gets played, I'm like, how much do you want to bet an Angel just flies out of the freaking deck and is going to land right there? Sure enough, that's exactly what happens, and I can just like recognize it because I'm like, well, that used to be my deck, and now I just see it, and it like I don't even want to go back to that one because it is just so boring. But I'm very excited to just even get like X23 Swarm. I've seen her a couple times here and there, so I'm very excited. Just keep unlocking, and that's the big drive, to just keep going back to it.
I'm curious to see if you stick with it and how that goes, because even just like the way card acquisition works is like totally different for you now than when I like was first getting into the game. It's like changed so much with like the spotlight caches, and they're not dropping cards into Series 3 anymore, and just all this stuff. And then even when you get to a certain point, then are you still getting like when you look at the collection track, is it like a question mark card, or is it like you see the next card you're going to unlock?
I thought they're just question mark cards.
Yeah, because I think that happens fairly quick, where you get past like, okay, these are the cards you're guaranteed to get for the first couple hundred collector levels. And now
just mystery cards.
Yeah, so now the pool that you have there is like freaking huge of cards that you could potentially see there. And so for like an example for me, like those are like the Series 3 cards that you're unlocking now, I think.
Okay.
The last one for me to get was Lockjaw, who was like a huge meta card for like months and months, and so many decks were built around like a Lockjaw deck. It was such a like important card, and it was just like the last one I got. So, but then naturally you might get Lockjaw first, or like really early on here, and then some other core card you won't see until way later. And so that part of it is very interesting, because I feel like you're just naturally in a phase where you're just going to be building a lot of different decks than I did at that level.
That's really interesting, actually, because I feel like I never really paid attention to the tree for that. It's just like, every handful of upgrades, I guess, I'm just going to get another card. And I actually assumed it was very linear. I thought it was like a set character that I'm getting because I just reached that specific collection level. So that's really exciting, actually, that it could be anyone in that pool, which is really fun. And I will say I'm really impressed that they just like the pace that you actually get the cards. Like, you do have to have... It's really good
early on, for sure.
Yeah, like you do need to have your, the credits, as well as the upgrade juice boosters, whatever the hell they're called. But it's like... It seems like every second one is another card. So like I don't feel like I really have to grind to just keep getting more cards, because that could be something that kind of deters me. If it's like I've been playing this for so long and I haven't seen another card, I'm stuck with my current just roster that I have. So I'm really happy with the setup that they have.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, have you redeemed your free monthly like Series 3 card in the store page there?
Free,
I think it's like under like the featured cards that you could buy with tokens, and maybe how you get like the free credits every day.
Yeah. Okay. I see the
Series
credits.
3, free Series 3. I forget what it's called exactly.
I don't even.
Maybe you're in Series 2 still. Maybe that's why. Maybe you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, maybe I'm still in Series 2 because I don't see.
Yeah, so I think maybe Series 1 are like those very default cards that like you'll see them on the tracker.
Yeah.
And then I think maybe Series 2 is like there's a pool of cards after that maybe it's like 20 cards or something. So you'll get those ones. Those are maybe more core cards, and then maybe you go into Series 3. So interesting. I thought you'd be able to do that right away, but that like they didn't have that in the game when I first played. When I first started either. So they've changed so much about it, but
it's awesome. It's growing.
Cool. I'm excited to hear that adventure as it keeps going along.
Absolutely.
Why don't we take our first break, and we'll be right back to talk about some of the other games that we've been playing. Okay, we are back. Was the other game Mortal Kombat, or did you have something else you wanted to mention?
Well, yeah, Mortal Kombat. I wasn't gonna mention it too
Okay.
much, other than just I'm loving it. Great game.
Nice.
I can't wait to talk about it in depth. No, the other one I've been playing is Miles Morales. I
okay.
booted
Good
that
timing.
up for the first time. Yeah, absolutely. I'm leading into end of October for that Spider-Man 2 release, and it's been a long time actually since I've played the PS4 Spider-Man, like the very first game. Never got Miles. I just never had enough, I don't know, need to jump back into it like right away. And then I recently upgraded my PlayStation Plus to like the premium bundle I was talking to you about on the last Sidequest, and Miles was one of those games. I think it's not in like the top tier, so if you just have like the second tier of the PlayStation Plus, you get access to it. I think it's called Extra, and man, I am loving it so much. Like it's nothing too crazy different from what that first game was, but I think it's just also reminding me of how much I love that first game. And there is like certain motions or maybe like fighting styles that Miles has that it's like, was this like, did Peter have this as well, or is this a new addition to the Miles Morales game? I don't even know. It's because it's just been so long, and I think that's maybe a big reason why I've been loving it so much, because it does feel so fresh. Like even just certain stealth sequences, like when you're silently taking people down, it's like I almost forgot about this in the game. Like it's just been so long, but I've been having lots of fun with it, just swinging around. I really like just the snowy time of the year that it has, and story. Like the main story, it's nothing too crazy. I feel like even in the PS4 Spider-Man, the main story wasn't the main takeaway that I got from the game. It's just so fun being Spidey and just saving the day when crime's going bad, when there's robberies in place. I really like the addition of the what was it called? It's like the Spidey app where you just get those requests, which I've seen they're sticking to it with Spider-Man 2. It's a really smart idea for just like, I don't know, a lore implementation. Like it makes sense that you just kind of have it on your phone there. Like where's the closest crime? So that's really fun. And I don't know, I'm just really liking Miles's powers with the Venom strikes and the different combos that you can do with it. Very satisfying. I have it on like the hard difficulty. I don't know if it's I think it just has 3 difficulties. I can't quite remember now. I just selected it right away, and there has been certain combat moments that I've been bopped like 3 times, which I think the first time I played Spider-Man, I think it was just like the normal difficulty, so nothing too crazy there. But yeah, I'm loving the suits and everything, like the Spider-Verse, or the one over my shoulder. This shoulder, that suit. I'm loving it so much. Just actually like take this Spider-Man and actually like with the joystick be able to play it and go through New York City. It's definitely getting me like super hyped for the release of Spider-Man 2, and it's a good time to be jumping into it because we're obviously pretty close to its end of next month, and I mean we'll be talking about the state of play with some gameplay shown there, and I'm loving it so much. I'm definitely gonna beat the complete game before I'm hopefully try and get the platinum like I did on the PS4 one before the release of the next one, because I haven't really been rushing the story. I've just been trying to do all the collectibles and stuff just because I love swinging around the city, and man, those swinging mechanics are so fun. And then you watch like the state of play for the new like spider, like the web wings that they have. I'm like, I cannot wait to be flying around New York City with those wings. So yeah, just very much in that spider mood right now because of that game. So that was the other game that I was gonna.
Yeah, no, I love that in particular Miles, since he's a newer, because Spider-Man, Peter Parker, when we jump in with his story in the first game, he's already been doing it for a few years, so he's very good at stuff, and it is a good way to contextualize it. But Miles, like being newer, I love that he just has like a more flaily style with his swinging. Like he doesn't quite have it down yet. He's still figuring it out. So I'm curious at how much they'll do of that in Spider-Man 2, where it's like, okay, well, at this point he's been doing it for a bit. He's a bit stronger, and he's learn the ropes at that point. So I don't know. I haven't really paid attention to in the trailers if he still has that sort of style, or if they've like completely given him a more of a professional sort of swinging ability. But yeah, that'll be cool to see.
They have to find that like nice middle ground of like making him look like a more seasoned Spider-Man, but still have his own little flair. Because I don't want to feel like I'm Peter when I'm playing as Miles. I don't want to feel like Miles when I'm playing as Peter, and I trust them to be able to pull that off. I haven't like dissected the gameplay and like exactly what their swinging mechanics look, but yeah, still really great. And I was very surprised by the first suit that you get. I thought it was going to be looking like the classic one behind me with like the hood and everything, but I just like how it's literally just like another suit that Peter kind of had with like it's like the same mask that he has, and then more of like a sweater type thing, but the same colors.
Right.
It was just a nice surprise, and I definitely laughed when it was just like, why is Peter not going to be around in this game? I'm going to Europe. I'll see you later. You got the keys to the city. It's like, of course, I don't need like a real deep meaning on why he's leaving, but it works.
Especially in hindsight, knowing now that, okay, well, we do get the sequel game where they're working together. It's fine. Yeah, I'm curious how long that platinum will take you, because I didn't stick around for the platinum like I did with Spider-Man 2018, and that one was like a fairly short platinum, it felt like. I think it was like around 40 hours for me to do everything in that game. But I mean, Miles, like the story itself, like playing through the main story was only like 10 hours for me or something. Like it's a way shorter experience. So I don't know if that means the platinum is also shorter. I imagine to some extent it is, but if there's even more collectibles, maybe it takes longer. But I'm curious how that stuff goes. And I feel like I didn't even really mess around with tons of the side content in it. So I'm curious to hear more of your thoughts on that when
I'll update you next time. Yeah.
Cool. The other game that I want to mention is one that I've been playing for a couple weeks now. Here, this came out just a few days after Starfield, so it didn't get booted up right away. It took a few days, but when I was out of town, I wanted something on my Switch, and so I picked up Sea of Stars. This has been I'd say highly anticipated indie game. It's from the developers of The Messenger, which was a big indie hit a few years ago. This is their kind of JRPG throwback. Very much like Chrono Trigger is the biggest influence that they'll mention, even down to they got the same composer from Chrono Trigger to come and do some songs for this game. But it very much has a similar sort of combat system. It has a similar like party roster, similar combat system, and it's just a classic JRPG in that way. So it feels very similar. I don't think the actual like story, even the setting to some extent, obviously parts of Chrono Trigger are high fantasy, but then there's also like space stuff and like just a post-apocalyptic world, all this different sort of thing going on, whereas this seems to be more grounded in sticking with the classic high fantasy sort of setting. I've put a good like 10 hours into this game now, and it's fucking amazing. It is super, super good. I had really high expectations for it, but it even exceeded those like a million times over. I think just the most simple way I can put it is that this game seems to take all the right lessons from those classic JRPGs in terms of sometimes you go back to those games and it can be pretty tedious to move around and like kind of slow paced, or things just are kind of clunky and a bit slow. But this game just is like really fun and frantic to move around. Like the movement is just really fun, just doing like platforming around the city. You get like a grappling hook at some point fairly early on, and that makes it even more fun to kind of Spider-Man your way around. You're swinging around a little bit. So like that part of the game, it feels great. Whereas normally JRPGs like feel very like you can feel the grid on these games, and you're walking on squares and like, oh, I have to go down this one staircase. But in this, you can just jump off any roof you want, jump off any ledge, climb a bunch of ledges. Like it just makes the world feel more engrossing too. And exploring is that much better because of it. And you'll find a lot of goodies hidden on rooftops and all that sort of thing. I think, one thing I've heard about this game is that people aren't necessarily into the story so much. And I think it is a little more slow paced. It definitely has a slow start, but I think what I found compelling about it is that it reminded me a lot of Fable, because you are a kid and you have like a best friend and you get kind of recruited to go to the school, and then you kind of have like you check out a different couple of years in that training process where you're learning different things, doing tests, and of course this is how like they tutorialize all the mechanics in the game as well. But then even down to like the guy who runs that school has like a bald head and like a long beard, and he has like a big cloak on, and he just reminds me of the
Guildmaster.
Yeah, the Guildmaster from Fable 1. So I can understand why people wouldn't be as into it, but I think it worked for me to really set the tone. And actually, it's good because they start off with like almost like a cold open. Like you get to do a half an hour of like screwing around, and then it's like a prequel. They're like thinking back on their time at the school, and that's when you go into that like really setting the pace. So it lets you like try some of the more interesting mechanics and see what the game is like before you are fully into that story element of it. And then that's only like an hour, and then you're just fully out into the world. I think compared to something like a Chrono Trigger, it's a little more linear. Like you do go into somewhat of a world map, and there's a couple deviations you can take, but it seems like that's like, okay, I'm gonna go fishing at this lake for 5 minutes, and then I'm just back on my main track going to my next place. So I'm curious if that'll open up at some point. I feel like it could once you get more mechanics going on. But I also feel like just with the main story, it was very much setting up like, here's this big doomsday event that you have to go end. And at the 10-hour mark, I went and did that, and then there was like some big story twist. Maybe I'm not going to spoil exactly what it is, but just it really blows the roof off and is like, okay, the thing that you thought you were building toward, that was just like the table setting. That was like the appetizer. And I haven't really gone past that yet, so I'm not really sure where the story is going to go from here, but I could see this being the point where it really opens up in a big way. To get into some of the combat mechanics here, because this is, it is turn-based, but I think once again they've taken so many lessons from the hundreds of JRPGs that exist and to make something kind of more interesting and a little more skill-based, where you actually like need to time your attacks and whatnot. But it seems like it's fairly basic on the surface. Your basic attacks, and then you have your magic abilities, and then eventually you do get like very much the Chrono Trigger, Suikoden kind of like buddy attack things, where you get like these combo attacks that do these certain bonus attacks. There's one mechanic that I really enjoy, which is that the enemies don't work on the same turn-based system that you do, kind of in the way that like Into the Breach kind of breaks the rules and you and your opponent have different ways that you play the game. It's kind of like that too, where you have a very basic, like every action, or once all three of your characters have done their action, then it's like maybe an enemy goes and then it's like back to your turn again. You can pick the order of them. But for the opponents, like they have this little number next to their name. And so after that many attacks, or like I guess after that many actions of any sort, so an attack from one of your guys, whatever it is, then they'll like go up in the turn order, and then eventually you can see like in how many turns they're going to attack, and you'll see like, okay, in 3 turns from now, 3 enemies are going to attack at the same time, so I got to get prepared for that, or maybe try and knock 1 or 2 of them out. And then on top of that, there's this kind of, I don't know if there's a name for the mechanic in the game. It's called like, I'd call it like a stance break, where essentially you'll get a bunch of little gems or little symbols above an enemy's head, and you'll maybe have a couple hammers, like moon magic, maybe 1 fire magic, maybe 1 sword attack. And if you can use all those types of attack on them before their next attack, then you'll like stance break them, and you'll completely skip their turn and deal bonus damage. But then I think what's genius about it is if you don't succeed and you don't hit all the pegs, let's say you hit 4 or 5, then you're still reducing their damage by a certain amount too. So you're at least weakening them before their attack. So it just adds like this really good tactical element to the battles. There's a nice mix too of you kind of have, whenever you do a basic attack, so a non-magic attack or like eating food as an action, you like generate this energy that pops out of an enemy, almost once again in a Fable sort of way, where like all these gems fly out of an enemy and you can collect them. And then you can build that up to 3 times, and then you can essentially use all that extra energy on a certain attack. So usually what I'm doing is I'm using 3 basic attacks, blast a bunch of those orbs out, and then use like my strongest magic attack with the full power and just try and go ham. But sometimes it's like, man, I just need a little bit more damage here, so I'm going to absorb 1 of these now. So once again, a very, very fluid system. And what else is there? Oh yeah, I guess the other interesting part of it that I kind of mentioned was the timing your attacks element of it. So essentially, like, you choose an attack. I'm going to choose my basic attack with a character, go up, slash my enemy. If you hit A at the right time, then you'll do like a bonus attack. You'll hit them twice. And that works the same for magic and all abilities. And the timing for some of them is less obvious than obviously like a sword swing is pretty obvious to tell like when that timing is. But then on the opposite side of things, you can also block at the perfect time when an opponent's hitting you, and then you'll just block more damage from them too. So, and the way they frame it in the game is like very much like, this is all bonus. You do never need to do that explicitly, but that's if you just want to be optimizing your damage or your damage reduction, then like you can do this extra little timing thing. So if you miss it, you don't feel bad, but when you hit it, you feel good. I think they've done a good job of like communicating that across and actually making it work. And then you'll have some really fun things, like one of the early abilities you get for your main character is this like moon scythe. Like it's almost like a Moon Knight kind of thing. You like throw this thing out, and then it bounces off an enemy, comes back to you, and when you hit A at the right time, it'll like bounce back out again. And you can just keep doing this, and like every time it gets slightly faster. So it starts out, I'm hitting my thumb like every second, and then eventually I'm like spamming, but then like you want to keep spamming, and you'll just get like sometimes 15 attacks off, and it just feels so good. Like, it's always satisfying. And then I think the one that you would really like, Kirkland, is another character has a very similar ability to that, but they're like they use like portals. They're always teleporting around. And so there's 2 portals on the ground, and very much like in those portal missions where you have to like go through a portal, and when you're at the height of your jump, you put a portal somewhere else, and then fall through that first portal, and then shoot it.
Yeah.
You do that kind of chain. She does that, so she's just going back and
Oh,
forth through
that's
this
cool.
portal, and you hit A at the height of her jump, and then she'll strike again, and then it speeds up, and it's just always satisfying. Then of course there's a million other like little abilities and healing mechanics and all these things that change up that on top of all these other characters you unlock. But like that's I feel like there's so many highlights of this game, but the combat is great, and especially just iterating on some of these things that are kind of tired or old, and sometimes even newer games like have a very boring turn-based combat system. But this is like super engaging, and every time I unlock a new ability, it just like totally changes the framework of like what's possible and like these different tactics. So really solid combat system.
That's awesome. I feel like my biggest like deterrent when it comes to like those classic JRPG games is just like that combat style. Maybe just because I don't know, gotten fully, like I don't have a lot of nostalgia playing those games. So I'm not like super used to that maybe slower pace style. So just having a lot more of those micro elements added to it, and to what you said, like it just kind of supplements. Like you don't have to do it, but when you can do it, you're definitely getting rewarded for it. So that just seems like it would definitely engage you. And I mean, just looking at all the art style looks absolutely gorgeous.
Amazing.
The landscapes look beautiful.
Amazing.
You mentioning that it's like the same composer as Chrono Trigger, that sounds beautiful. I'm not going to be bold and say I'm going to pick this up right away because I have way too many things on my docket, let alone I still have Chrono Trigger. I have those games.
It is on PS Plus. I imagine within the extra tier.
Oh, okay.
It's on
That's
Game Pass and PS Plus. And I didn't realize either of those things, so I bought the game on Switch, played Starfield for a few days, and then I saw on Xbox that it was on Game Pass. And that's how good the game is that I didn't even care at all. I was like, you know what, they deserve it. And it's like not a cheap indie game either, but I'm like, you're getting my $50 100 times over. Like this game is definitely worth it. And I prefer to have it on the Switch with the handheld version, played on the go kind of thing. But yeah, they've made it very easy for me to play this game.
Well, there you go. I actually will try it out now because I do have access to PlayStation Plus. So yeah, it looks like it's the extra tier. Like it's part of the games catalog.
The only thing is what I've already mentioned is like that's that hour at the beginning of the game where you're getting the character stuff and you're in the school. It's very slow paced, but if you get past it, the rest of that game, well, at least so far in my 10 hours, is just amazing and all really good, and even like subverts the expectations, and you don't go to, I feel like, the classic JRPG biomes. So maybe I won't say what they are because you're going, but just like you go to some weird creepy areas, you go to like this pirate sort of town. I don't know. You're just going to places that seem like, how can we just try stuff that has maybe been tried before, but not in a meaningful way? Or usually like these would be the later game wacky areas you go to, but instead the whole game seems to be just like, okay, how can we just make this as fun as possible the whole way through? And that's why we play games for, right? We play for fun at the end of the day. I maybe a couple other notes here. I think the leveling up is really smart because sometimes you just get really stuck in the weeds of a skill tree in a JRPG that's like this, that has all these stats and modules everywhere. But this game does a pretty smart thing. Every time you level up, you get the basic things, like you get some more health, you maybe get a little more damage, but then you get one of 4 attributes, and it seems like it's fairly random. So it'd be like, okay, you can put 8 extra points into health, 3 extra points into damage, 3 extra points into magic, and you just get to pick one of those things. So rather than, it almost probably works similarly to a skill tree, but it's narrowed down, and it's like, okay, you get to choose one of these 4 things each time. And it always feels good to do that, and then you don't have the analysis paralysis thing too, of like looking at a skill tree for hours and thinking, okay, I want to build towards this peg that's way up there, so I got to go to It's just, it's simple and easy, but you still feel like you have enough choice that it's, an RPG at the end of the day. And then, awesome. And then I think as far as the character, like I said, I'm liking the story more, and I think it's more of these scenarios that you're in rather than the overarching story, although there is like some good twists going on that are compelling to me. But I think the highlight for me is definitely some of the characters, and weirdly not like the 2 protagonists. You have like 2 main characters, like a kind of a moon and a day, or moon and a sun kind of themed character. Okay. And you can pick which one you want to be the lead in the party, and I think you can just change it later on, is something they say. Character-wise, like, I think they're totally fine, but they're maybe a bit too blank canvas-y for me. But some of the other characters in the game, this character named Garl that you'll meet very early on when you play this game, I fucking love Garl. Like, I will die for Garl. He's such a great character.
Is that the one with the, it's got like the scar on his eye? Yes.
You'll find out where that scar comes from. And then I think another thing is cool too is eventually I because you kind of had those people in my party for a while, and then I encountered this other girl who it's kind of like a storyteller is her vibe, and she's just existing and like learning lore about this world. And she joins your party, but not as like a playable character, but she just hangs out. And then whenever you go to like a campfire or like a bonfire in this game is kind of where you save, you can cook meals there. You're usually just hanging out there. They're paced at a nice spot in the story to like kind of just take a break a bit. She'll hang out there at the campfire and she'll like just share campfire stories. So if you want to get some more lore on the world, you'll like collect lore things like a page, in a class, any other game. But like you bring it to her and then she'll like tell it in some big story way. So if you're someone who's like, I just want to play the game, I just want to do combat and puzzles, then you can just do that. But if you want any extra story stuff, or maybe one night you're like kind of tired and you just want to like get a little bit of lore, then you can just choose to do that at any point. I love that it's opt-in lore, or not just something where you feel obligated to go click on everything and like put it into your encyclopedia and then never actually read it. Mm-hmm. It's just like perfect the way they weave that into the story and make that like a specific character's role. I thought was just incredibly smart.
That's such a smart idea, even just for other games to have. Like I remember The Witcher kind of an aspect of that. Like I think early on you could just speak to someone. You don't have to, but you could just speak to them and you just fill you in on what's been going on in the world. Yeah. And like you don't have to do that by any means, but it's like, yeah, I do want to know what happened between the war of this faction, this faction. So I definitely think more games should do that, because that could be such a deterrent. You have the wall of text that you have to get through. And it's like okay, now I'm getting tired. Like I don't really want to play this now.
It's perfect. And then I think just I do enjoy the writing. I think the dialogue's well written for the most part, and like the game's funny. Like it's made me laugh a few times, which is always a good thing to see as well. So yeah, I can't wait to play more of this thing. I really, really love it. And yeah, everyone else should check it out. And once again, they've given you so many avenues to check it out. I'm sure it's on Steam as well. So you have all these different platforms. 2 of them are part of the subscription services. So easy to pick up and play in that way. And everyone should check it out. Sea of Stars.
Nice.
There you go. How about with that, let's take our next break. And then we'll come back and we'll get into some of these showcases that we had last week. We'll be right back. Kirkland, pressure's on. Do you want to talk Nintendo or do you want to talk Sony? Where are we going first today?
I think one of these showcases was really amazing, and one of them was a big sleeper. And
okay.
I'm gonna say State of Play was the big sleeper. So let's start there and then end on a high note. I like it. It's not that I didn't like enjoy the things that were shown here. I think just a lot of it didn't speak to me. There was some VR things that were thrown in there that. Every time VR is on there, I just kind of half listen because I don't have a VR and I don't really see myself having one in the future. Resident Evil, like I'm not really big attached to that franchise. I have played a little bit of it, but like building on, like I think they had a DLC for the 4th, and then another like maybe the VR was for the 4th or something like that. Like, a lot of Resident Evil 4 stuff in here. I'm like, it doesn't speak to me at all. So like overall, I think it was one of the. Just I don't know, one of my least I don't even want to say my least interested State of Play, because I feel like there has been some that really were bad, but yeah, this one didn't speak to me too much. And it's funny because I didn't watch them until today, and you on the weekend off cast were just like, yeah, we got a big episode, it's gonna be a big one. So I started with the State of Play. I'm like, really, we got a lot to talk about. And then of course
just lie in your face. Yeah.
And then I watched the 45-minute direct, and wow, there's a lot to talk about on that one. But State of Play, let's start there.
Yeah, I think I'm definitely warmer on it than you, and honestly not a lot of it is even necessarily for me specifically, but I think there were I'm going to say 3 in general, really, really good showcases for games. So even if I don't even know if I'm going to pick up the games necessarily, I just was thoroughly enthused by what was on screen. And then there was a couple things that were kind of more for me specifically. But I do agree with you in the sense that there were definitely a few sleeper things in here. And, I'm like you, I don't have VR, so I just like, okay, I'm waiting for this section of the showcase to be over. But I also don't think the showcase overstayed its welcome, and I don't think there was a ton of fluff in there. I don't think there was a ton of just like things packed in to pad it out. It seemed like, for the most part, fairly succinct. So let's get into it. And for actually, I'm just gonna say this up front, for both this and Nintendo, we're not necessarily going to talk about every single thing. I took notes for the things that I think are interesting or that me or you will have anything to say about. So we might skip a few things. That's that. So I want to start it with the game that started this thing off, which is a game we've seen a couple times now called Baby Steps. And this is just, it's the guy who made Quap and the guy who made
is. Okay, that makes so much sense.
Yes.
As soon as I saw a movie, I'm like, this is Quap. This is like a 3D Quap,
It's Quap in fucking 4K. Yeah, it's Quap in 4K. He made Getting Over It as well. So he's very much into these weird physics movement-y games that are very silly or have a weird sort of setup in some way. But yeah, I love that he just made Quap, which was just like some high school like viral game at my high school, and it's just like, oh yeah, now he's out here making some game that's headlining this PlayStation showcase. Is such an interesting idea. And we've seen this game a couple times now, and I think probably from Sony, it seems like they're really pumping this game up. And yeah, mechanically, like I don't know if I'm super into it. I think it'll be, fun, goofy time, but it's like it's funny to me that they're making this like the most like high fidelity game of all time. But I think for me, it's just like it seems like it knows exactly what the tone of this thing is, and it's just stupid and funny. And like this gimmick of him talking to this fucking guy, and he's like, "Oh yeah, just use a grappling hook," and like they're just going back and forth on this grappling. He's like, "Yeah, I'll use the grappling." I could not do it justice, but like, holy shit, I loved it. I was cackling. I really, really enjoyed it. And I think above all, this is the one where I was like, okay, I actually think I want to play this game now. Before I was like, okay, this seems like a weird curiosity. I'm excited to hear other people love this thing, but like, I don't think I need to spend $30 on it, whatever it's going to be. But after that, I was like, okay, I feel like if it's just this stupid gags the whole time and like a fun enough combat system, like, or not combat system, movement system, it seems like you'll be fighting with the movement. So maybe it is combat system. Then I don't know. I feel like it could be a good time. So I thought this was one of those trailers for me that was like, okay, this was a great showing for this game, even though why is this the game that's getting all these resources for a great showing,
I was so puzzled that this was what started us off on the showcase. Like it definitely caught my eye though, because I was looking one way and then it caught my eye, and then I just was staring at it. I'm like, is this really what's happening? And then we got to the grappling hook guy that just swings in. I love it too because it even shows like the classic video game like interaction thing, like for the grappling hook where you'd hit like square or something, to use it. And he just like, I'll use the grapple hook, and he just like keeps walking, goes over to the edge and just falls over. It's just like, man, like if anything, this looks hilarious to play, and big differential from Quap. Like Quap, it was a big viral high school thing. I still like was trying to play that game, and it was just frustrating. It's like, no, yes. This is like, just making me pissed off. But this hopefully is a lot. I don't want to say like easier, because like the big challenge of the game is probably just using that gameplay, but at least just more approachable as opposed to just trying to limp your way, across down the line. Especially if it has like actual voice actors. Like they do want you to at least progress through the game. But it definitely caught my eye. Definitely, at least, I'm not gonna say at release or anything, but I do want to try this at some point, purely for like just honestly like the story and the humor over the gameplay, because that got me so good. It was so random when this guy that's like in rock climbing attire is just like talking to him, and this guy's wearing like a freaking PJ onesie thing, super dirty. He was just laying in the mud, and then he just swings off like Spider-Man. No explanation. Just him like on a skateboard later on. This definitely was just I think a great way to start the showcase, because like they could have started with Spidey or something like that, but just to have this super, and like you mentioned, like we have seen it before. I just definitely forgot about it until they said Baby Steps. That's really what clicked for me. But this is definitely an original idea. I like it.
Absolutely. And then there was that VR section, Resident Evil 4 VR, Ghostbusters Rise of the Ghost, or Rise of the Ghost Lord, perhaps. Anyway, there's some VR titles for you. The more interesting thing for me was that until Starfield came out, and then until Sea of Stars came out, Resident Evil 4 Remake was just chilling as my game of the year. It's been up there, and like there hasn't been much competition for me in that way. And it's like, okay, that's my game of the year going into this. I never played the original, but like this was just a great time. It lives up to the hype. It subverted my expectations. We did a review for it. You can go back and check that out. And it's like, okay, here's some DLC coming for this, which I guess was DLC that was done before, like on the Wii version of the game, or I don't know where you could play it, but you could anyway. This DLC existed before, and so they're remaking the DLC as well, and probably adding more sections to it. And that's coming out in literally 3 days on September 24th. So you get to play as Ada, who's kind of antagonist, and that's one of my questions in that game is like, where the fuck is she for half this adventure? And it's like, well, here's the answer. You get to play as her here, and I guess that kind of makes sense because I think a lot of, like, Resident Evil 2 and 3 are both like that, right? Where you can pick which protagonist you want at the start of the game, and then you can, like, you know, play the opposite playthrough afterwards and see what they did exactly in those other moments. So yeah, this seems to kind of make sense in that way, and yeah, I'm like gonna pick this up for sure. I'm excited to play through it. And I don't know if it's super good. Maybe it'll climb back into my Game of the Year slot. We'll have to wait and see on that. But yeah, this is a great surprise for me because I this is probably rumored and probably talked about, but I feel like this is the first time it was actually announced or shown in a big way. And for me, who's not like super deep in the Resident Evil community, but I've definitely been getting into these games more recently, this is a nice welcome surprise. I don't know if I'm worried if I'm going to play it right away or if I'm going to wait until like a little October vibes. But we're close enough. And I also wanted to play through Resident Evil 2 or 3 during October because I bought both of those recently. So I don't want too much Resident Evil in my life. But yeah, I think definitely going to pick up this one because it's the new thing this year. So yeah.
Yeah, I don't have any affiliation with that specific title, so I had no idea what this was. I thought it was a separate game until I saw some familiar Resident Evil characters in it. But I thought it was a fantastic trailer nonetheless. Like, although it wasn't speaking to me, just a really like it caught my eye. I was very intrigued. Part of me maybe was hoping it was like a standalone thing, just because I was interested in what was going on. But yeah, who knows? Maybe one day I'll travel through the Resident Evil games. They're super spooky and they they scare me.
4 is not so spooky,
no?
Actually.
Okay.
There's a couple moments for sure where there's some weird abomination creatures.
Yeah.
But it's an action game, and that's what surprised me the most about playing through it this year. I was like, this is a cheesy action movie that you get to play as, and there's a couple spooky moments. So especially, you know, after playing 7 and 8, those are the more horror games, with these remakes like these, I guess the 2, 3, 4 in particular, like, definitely focus on the combat above all else. And like the gun mechanics are insane. There's all these different upgrades you're doing. And yeah, above all, it's like it's super cheesy and stupid. But it like knows that and it plays into that.
Yeah.
That was a big thing that surprised me. So yeah, I don't know. I don't think it's as scary as you think it is. But
I think it's just the atmosphere. They do such a good job at just immersing you in this world. I borrowed Resident Evil 2 remake from a buddy, and yeah, it definitely isn't like the scariest game I ever played, but they sure just make you feel like you are in Raccoon City and you were the last survivor, and you got Mr. X chasing you down like consistently, and it's just very stressful. So a lot of sweaty palms while playing these games, at least for myself.
Fair enough. We had another showcase here for Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, which is coming out December 7th. I don't feel like I got any new information from this showcase here, and it makes me wonder if they're trying to hold stuff back or if the game really is just like more of an exploration simulator rather than having a ton of mechanics going on. I didn't even feel like they really showed a ton of combat here. So yeah, I don't know if I really gained anything from the showing here, but I'm curious where you're feeling on this one, because I don't know if I've got the update from you recently on how you're feeling about Avatar.
Yeah, I feel like I was pretty positive on this. Actually, it looked really good. It's funny how it's like, what was the title? The Frontiers
of Pandora.
Oh, it's just Frontiers of Pandora. It just feels like a game based on the first movie, because there's like no water elements or anything. Like it seems like it's only things from the first movie, which isn't a bad thing. But I don't know. I think it at least has me interested for more. Not so much like, I don't this isn't for me. I felt like they just captured a lot of the magic of the world of Pandora, at least for me, watching this trailer. And I don't know, I feel like I am positive on it, but I could also see it being a disappointment. I was kind of just confused as kind of like what you're saying on just what exactly you're doing, because there's like a lot of first person moments, but then also like while they're flying, like it's third person. I don't know if you can switch back and forth. Like it is a little bizarre that they didn't just like solidly say this is what you're doing, this is who you're tackling. It seemed like a lot of what they're talking about would be, I guess, story action stuff on I don't know the name of what the protagonist was, but they're mad at the RDA, and it seems like they're going to be fighting against them and doing similar things that Jake Sully did on his adventure of Pandora. So I got a watchful eye on it. I'm not committing too far on it. I definitely need to see more gameplay though, and I think there's probably a lot of people that think that as well. But overall, I thought it looked good. It looked pretty. And yeah,
nice. Yeah, a couple sequels: Ghost Runners 2, Helldivers 2. Those exist. Let's scoot along to Spider-Man. So yeah, there's quite a few details here. You'll forgive me if I mention anything that's been shown before, because I feel like I've been going a little silent on the game. Honestly, I don't feel like I need to see anything at all for this. Like Spider-Man 2 is kind of enough. I gotta be honest, Kirkland, I've been a little on the edge of whether or not I'm buying a PS5 here, and obviously it'd be for picking up this game, but I've just been feeling a little trepidatious on this recently.
Great word choice. It's so funny that you mentioned that, because as I was watching this trailer in my mind, because I knew that you had said, when Spidey 2 comes out, you're going to get a PS5. And I'm like, is he really going to just get a PS5 for this game? And I'm not saying that the gameplay trailer was bad by any means. It's like, is it good enough to get you through? It's just, we're all busy people. And with the amount of other titles that you're playing, you're a big Game Pass gentleman that I know. So you just have so much content there that are you getting the maximum value that you'd be getting from getting a console that they're not cheap. They've been out for a few years now, but still they're not cheap. And so it's just funny that you brought that up, because I was gonna kind of ask you about that as well. And there is some great stuff for sure on the PS5, but is that enough? I want to
talk through it a bit. You can be my gaming therapist here, because there's a few things that factor into it. One, it's not just Spider-Man, but the impetus for buying it now would be to play Spider-Man 2. There's other things, I really, really want to play Returnal still. That would be the next big one. And then honestly, it's I guess I'm waiting for Wolverine, and then we don't really know many of the first party things other than that, officially announced. I know Ghost of Tsushima 2 is going to happen at some point, but nothing really feels imminent enough. I guess Death Stranding 2 is another one that would actually really push me to it. Maybe that's a good argument for it. But yeah, there's a few things. One, it's of course I think about the Sidequest perspective, we want to talk about it here, but it's okay, you and Travis got me covered in that way.
Yeah.
Technically, I don't need to be around. You guys can cover that game in a big way. It is expensive. That is something I'm factoring in. There's also the element too of, I forget if this is an official announcement or a big rumor, but PS5 Pro is coming out next year. So it's maybe I just wait for the Pro at this point. Yeah. Maybe it'll look nicer, because I hate the look of the current PS5 and I don't want to display that monstrosity in my. It's
a big boy.
And then honestly, I think maybe the biggest thing of all is that I'm very much on the edge of getting a new PC at this point. I feel like it's time. This thing is fucking slow, and I do a lot of things on this PC, and it would really help my productivity in a lot of ways if I just had something that was a bit better, and that is obviously not cheap, because I think I need to just get a full new PC at this point, because I would have to upgrade probably almost everything. So at that point, I might as well just go from scratch kind of thing. So those are, I think, all of my thoughts that lead to should I do it?
Yeah.
How do you think with all those variables I throw at you? What is the answer?
I mean, I'll try and be, as objective as possible. I am a PlayStation owner myself, but I think the big arguments for are those titles that you listed, the ones that are must play for yourself, like those Death Stranding 2s, Ghost of Tsushima 2s, Spidey 2s, a lot of 2s coming out on the PS5.
A lot of 2s.
But for content wise, Travis and I are definitely both going to be getting Spidey, and I don't think you really have to rush out of the gate, especially just life is expensive. And with the amount of content that we put out there, just the different aspects that you are playing stuff on, especially if you're upgrading your PC, you get a whole catalog of games right there. A lot of PlayStation titles do get those Steam releases maybe a little bit later on if you want to go that route. Death Stranding had that. I know you would probably want to get on it right away. Death Stranding took a while to come to PC. Yeah. But I think also just in the back of my mind when I was having those thoughts earlier watching the Spidey trailer, and it's just if I was in Dylan's shoes, would I have to be getting this? I am a big Spidey fan. You know, my name's Spidey Boy today, but that's probably a big reason why I already have a PlayStation because I kind of chose my cards in that aspect. But I don't have an Xbox. You know, like if I had, I think the argument would be a lot different if I already had the Xbox with the Game Pass and the massive catalogs that they already have. I don't have that, and that's why I've committed to getting like the PlayStation Plus because that has a big catalog of games right there.
Yeah,
so.
no, honestly, even you talking about that recently is like, man, I really want to jump into that library because that is fantastic. Especially you're talking about Sly Cooper and stuff a few weeks ago. It's like, man, I there are so many games on the backlog that would definitely help if I had access to that. So yeah, there's a lot of factors.
Absolutely. But like I think it was a year or so ago I was debating on if I wanted to get an Xbox pretty much just as a Game Pass machine. It's funny, we were kind of having a similar conversation about that, and you were giving me all the pros for it, and I thought it was making sense at the time. I am glad that I didn't bite that bullet because I just feel like which my schedule at the time, like I have a hard time getting through games enough with my one console, let alone if I was just being overloaded with all the content that both would provide. So I think I don't want to give you a solid answer. You know, it is your decision by the end of the day, but I don't think it's a must have. Maybe if this like it's weird because I was gonna say maybe if this trailer was just crazier, it's like, oh my god, this is a must play game. I still think it was a fantastic trailer, but I also don't feel that. Maybe if this was the first Spidey trailer I ever saw for like, you know, if we didn't have PlayStation 4 Spidey release, this was just like the first Spidey game, I probably would have been making those arguments like, you have to get this. Look at this. You're going to be swinging around.
That is a thing where it's like, if I go back to thinking about those initial Sony showcases that sold me on the PS4, and then I was like a diehard fan for years. That was like my console. I was loving it. Was like, here's Horizon, here's God of War 2018, here's Spider-Man 2018, here's Death Stranding, here's Ghost of Tsushima. You had all of these like new IP that are like flourishing and blossoming. I'm like, man, I want to play all of these things, even ones like Days Gone that I've still never got around to. It's like seeing those games are like mind-blowing stuff. And I think that's also slightly part of it is I feel like some of these sequels, like I think honestly Horizon was like a big one for me. I was like, man, I could not care less about this sequel, and I loved that first game. And there's just something, and like even Miles, like I didn't really like Miles Morales that much, and that's where I'm thinking like, should I get this for Spider-Man 2 if I didn't like the second game in like this trilogy, so to speak? And so I don't know if there's that worry there of like, okay, these games aren't changing enough from their first ones that I'm not really getting as much the next time around. There is still one, like God of War is a good exception where I didn't like 2018, but really loved Ragnarok. So it's of course not a blanket statement across the board or anything like that. But yeah. I'll have to report back on that because it's a month from now, I guess, is when this game's coming out. So I got to make that decision at some point here. But how about we talk about the showcase and the game here? So some of the new details we kind of got a little bit detailed. They said that the city is twice as big as it was in that 2018 game, and Miles Morales had the same map with like it was snowy and maybe a couple other key like set piece areas kind of added. But they've added another area across one of the bridges. And then a couple areas, like I think they said Harlem, and then one other.
It was Brooklyn and Queens that they said.
Okay,
like the new ones, because I think we already had Harlem. That's where Ben was. Right. Buried.
I don't know if they were just because I feel like it had all these areas, but maybe just not like fully. I guess maybe it just didn't have Queens, which is kind of crazy because that's like where he's from.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah,
like I feel like there must have been some reference to Queens, but anyway, like those are like I guess the boroughs that have been expanded, and then we have like this whole other area on the other side of the bridge. So that's exciting. We obviously kind of knew they were going to stay in New York and not go to like London, like far from home sort of situation. But
it's like a Legend of Zelda aspect where it's an underground now. You know, it's like the dark zone.
Yeah, that would be. I mean, honestly, there's so many fucking weirdos that live in those underground sewers in the Marvel universe. There's the Morlocks. There's like
the Morlocks,
lizard. Oh, there's like a million creatures that live down there. So I would be down for some more.
That's the third title.
Yeah, exactly. The Morlocks return. I don't know how the swinging mechanics would work down there, but then obviously because of that, you're going to have the ability, the web wings as we talked about, and that's a good way to, well, you have a lot more ground to cover. So here's a new way to fly in a much more quicker way, give you a little more variety in that way. And then they talked about something about you're really, I guess, almost in a Saints Row sort of way. You're like locking down districts, and that's unlocks like fast travel points that you can use. So it seems like they're kind of with the inclusion of a map that's twice as big, they're really thinking about, okay, what does that meaningfully mean? Like, is it now a 15-minute trek to get to your next quest? Well, probably not, because they're going to add all these other convenient ways for you to move around more quickly. So those are some good highlights there.
And like adding on to the fast travel too, they're able to just showcase the power of the the next gen consoles with the SSD.
You sound like Mark Cerny over here. Yeah.
I do. I'm paid from Sony, but I like just to I just using the next gen console. It's not any different whether you're an Xbox user or a PlayStation user of the next gen things, but man, the way that games are able to just like instantly load now, because I have Miles on the PS5 version, and like when I click that game, like I'm already like at the main menu, and then I hit my save and I'm just like in the game. Like it is just so nice to have that fast-paced action, and for them to like be able to showcase like the fast travel element. Like, okay, I click this area and then it just shows the map, and you just zoom, like you literally swing down like through the map and you're just going. Like that aspect is just, oh man, like we are just saying goodbye to loading screens. I never thought we'd be seeing the day.
Yeah.
It's super exciting.
And then, honestly, I don't feel like there's too much other than that, because they actually have shown a lot of this game already, but they highlighted that there's like 50, what was the number, 50-something suits in this game?
65. And then they have variants of them where you can kind of have like your color palette on, like maybe there's 5 different versions of the one specific. So I think they had like 200 plus different combinations that you can have, which is just... I think that was like my favorite thing about the game was the suits. Like we had such a big section on our review just talking about our favorite suits. I think we did a ranking on it. So the fact that we just have so many more, that gets me super, super excited.
Yeah, I'm curious how many of those and how other variants we'll get for Miles, because I think this is the thing in general. He's a much newer character, so he doesn't have decades and decades and decades of other variants and other suits and other versions that he's had over the years. So hopefully he gets... I don't know. Once again, I don't remember exactly how many there were in Miles, but I feel like there was probably a lot less than Peter had in 2018.
Definitely.
So, yeah, hopefully he gets a bunch of new ones. And I don't even know if there's been some new comic runs in between Miles Morales and now that, just could bring in some more variants there. But yeah, hopefully he gets a bunch of stuff as well. And then you throw in the Venomized versions of some of these things too, and you're going to get just a lot of variety in that way. I also know that, I guess as of a few days ago, there's been impressions out from a lot of people who've got to play the game. I personally not opted into any of those, so I don't really feel like I can really share any of those perspectives of people who have been playing the game now. But yeah, was there anything else? Because honestly, I feel like the showcase, those are kind of the big highlights for me. But it was more just like, we've already seen a ton of this game, so none of it's terribly new information, and it's already third game in a series, so you kind of know what to expect.
Yeah, exactly. I'm much like you. I was kind of just not putting shining a light on this game, mostly just because I knew I was getting it. I didn't want to have like a lot of things revealed on it. I'm always the type of person that I want to experience that myself, like those new things. So a lot of this showcase, other than I guess the trailer that we had already seen prior, like that's all I've really seen on. I haven't seen people discussing on what's in there, so all of this information was new to me. At least the new information that they did reveal. So just like confirmation that you can just be like switching between Miles and Peter. That's exciting. Like the Grand Theft Auto element, but also like, I don't know exactly how it played. I think they were talking about it. Maybe you can correct me here, but like it seems like there's actually certain combat too that you can do where like both Spideys are just like popping off with each other, like the combo. Like I did see one moment, and it might have been like a quick main story thing, but like
I would
Peter
imagine
punches.
That's what those moments are,
okay.
Or like they had those like villain. I don't even know what you'd call them. There's like this fucking floating orb in the sky, and you go over there, and there's like a certain quest.
Right.
You can see. So maybe it's more for like these very specific moments rather
like a
than
real-time event
general.
Sort of thing.
Yeah, something like that.
Okay, yeah, because that was just something that was very new to me. Like I figured that you'd be able to play both Spideys, but to actually like interact with each other at the exact same time, like I punch this one person and then Miles just swings in, takes him out. Like that's just really cool because it does. I feel like that makes it feel like while I'm playing Peter, Miles is actually out there like doing his thing, and that like if they're able to capture that really well, I think that's fantastic. Yeah, we had, like you said, like the just the real-time event things like with the Mysterio orb. We had like some Kraven drones that you can kind of follow. Those moments feel really cool as well because it makes it feel like a living, breathing world. It's not like I have to go to this marker, hit X to start this quest. You know, like it's just like New York is alive, and they're just Kraven's bots are out there, and Mysterio's doing crazy things. So I think that's something that is, I mean, yeah, it's new from the first game and is definitely an added boost. And other than that, though, like, yeah, it's not like they're reinventing the wheel, but I'm kind of happy with that. I think they had they had it figured out. The formula was really good. So going back to formula isn't always such a bad thing. And yeah, I just can't wait to get my hands on this. Seeing Venom as well in there, I'm so pumped. I mean, yeah, he's over my shoulder over here, the big bad booty daddy Eddie Brock Venom in there. I don't think Eddie Brock's actually in this game, but just to actually have like the big mouth Venom in this game is super exciting to me. Don't love like the how much white he has on his shoulders, but I think it's one of those things where I'm kind of just nitpicking. Once we're actually in the game, I probably won't even notice it. But yeah, the last of my observations, I think there.
Nice, cool. Yeah, that's coming out pretty soon here in about a month's time, so that's exciting. We're on the precipice of that, and then closing out the show was Final Fantasy VII Rebirth. This is the second part coming out February 29th. And then they said it's a PS5 exclusive until May 29th. So I am curious if that means PC. That's a pretty quick PC release. Or if that means PS4 is coming out May 29th. And they're really trying to like push you to get a PS5 to play this game, but it's still going to come to PS4, which would make sense because that first part is, of course, a PS4 release as well. So obviously it's like, all the time sequels are coming out on consoles, you know, across different consoles generations. You can't play entire series on one console usually, so it wouldn't be unheard of for them to have part one on PS4 and then not have it on here if the tech doesn't allow for it anymore. But I just would have assumed with the way this game was being built and the game development process that it would have been kind of all built on the same tech, generally speaking, and so it would work on PS4. So I'm going to say that I'm guessing that this is going to be on both, and that's what that May 29th later release date is for, but they didn't really specify here in the showcase. So just kind of a weird thing that I wanted to pick out there because it was like asterisks and fine print, but I'm like, I'm going to pause on that for because I'm curious what they mean by that. It stood out to me. But for me, this was a weird case where, you know, I'm not really a big Final Fantasy guy. I checked out 7 a little bit. Like I played the demo, which was like you get to play 1 hour of the game. And obviously it didn't lead into me buying the full game or anything like that. But I thought this was one of the best video game trailers I've maybe ever seen in my life. Like it's just looks fucking amazing. Of course, visually, even story-wise, I don't know a lot of these characters meaningfully, but I was still really engaged. I'm like, wait, Sephiroth is like working with Cloud at one point. Like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And at other points they're like fighting. I don't know anything about this story, of course, and like seeing some of these other characters is really cool. Just the variety of stuff. Like there's all these, you can race with all sorts of, like whether it's like a vehicle or just like the chocobos, I guess. There's like this weird polygon, like 2D fighting mode where you're as like an old school Final Fantasy VII Cloud. So I'm like, that's very fun. Cloud's driving around on a Segway in some cool city. It just looks awesome. It looks like it's got everything going for it. So I don't know. I'm like, all of a sudden, like, man, I just want to get this game and play this game all of a sudden. So once again, the PS5 situation will factor into that, and I feel like, well, I should obviously play Final Fantasy VII. What the fuck was the first part called? Did it even have a name, or was it just Final Fantasy VII Remake? I think it was. And then there was like the Intergrade Intermission DLC. So I guess I should play through those before I get to this, of course. But yeah, I gotta say, this was like amazing trailer, and hopefully the game lives up to the hype here. I'm sure it will, because this is my favorite game of all time.
No, 100%. I completely agree with you. I think Final Fantasy, although I've never really gotten like deep into their games, the one I played the most would have been 15, which was fucking amazing. Like it was so well made, and just cinematically, I was like, I can't believe this is actually a game. And that was at the time in like the PS4 era. And then what was the most recent one? Was it 16?
Yeah, 16 came out in the summer. Yeah.
Yeah. So like that was one of the most beautiful, or one of the most beautiful game showcases I've ever seen in my life. And I'm like, I'm never going to play this game, but this still blows my mind. And this is another one of those cases where I'm like, I probably won't ever play this game. I feel like it's such a special type of game that's out there that will just consume hundreds upon hundreds of hours. And every little aspect is just so well refined, whether it is those little 2D aspects or like the races on the chocobos or the actual like just character like cinematics. Like I was getting totally engaged, like exactly what you said, where it's like, what the hell? Like I don't know anything about this, but I know that guy's bad, and why is he like interacting with Cloud here? But so it's pretty amazing that they're able to get that effect out of, you know, someone like me or someone like you that isn't really attached to this franchise. But yeah, I'm super happy for all the fans out there that are just fans of this series, and they're still getting some great content.
I'm so jealous of Final Fantasy diehard fans. They got so much
That is a
fucking
good point.
games. They get like remakes every month. They get like
they have an MMO that's I think still going.
Yeah, MMO that's popping off. They're getting so much good stuff just constantly for years and years. Maybe nothing's stopping me from becoming a fan other than actually playing the games. So
yeah, just time in your day. Not enough time in the day.
Or like I get into it and then immediately like stop making games, and Square Enix goes bankrupt. We know they lost a bunch of money recently. That was like some news article floating around. So maybe I don't want to give it the kiss of death in that way. Maybe I'll keep my distance and let those people have their fun. There you go. That's the Sony state of play. Why don't we take our last break, and then we will get into the final segment of our show, of course, talking about the Nintendo Direct. We are back. Kirkland, I feel like the general opinion of this Direct that I've seen is people saying, it wasn't the best. So I'm curious. Well, of course, we'll get into the specifics, but why was this one so hyped for you? I'm curious.
For me personally, I feel like, you know, I'm not a big Nintendo guy. I appreciate their titles. At one point in the podcast, I said I was never gonna get a Switch. I hate Nintendo. You know, like those words came out of my mouth years ago on the podcast, and here I am. I'm a Switch owner. I love the Switch. It's a fantastic console, one of my favorite, and I've had so much fun playing Nintendo games in the last handful of years. So I've definitely switched my tune, but by any means, I am. That was unintended, but I'm glad it happened. By no means am I.
The Switch snap
the little the direct thing. So by no means am I like the big Nintendo guy, but I still think that there is some really cool surprises for myself, at least. Maybe a lot of these titles, a lot of like the Nintendo fans already knew about, but like the Princess Peach announcement just had me super pumped. What was it called? Shazam or something like that? It was Sparkle. Showtime. There you go. It had an S title.
Just in the DC universe. Exactly. Levi's voicing Peach.
As soon as that happened, like Shay, one of her favorite Mario games of all time was Princess Peach on the Game Boy, I think Advance, one of the Game Boys. She
DS, I think. So
the DS. There you go. Yeah, that's like probably her favorite Mario game. So I told her that. She got really hyped. So Princess Peach, Mario RPG, Paper Mario. All my Paper Mario memories are from playing at McDonald's back when they had the consoles there, and still it's like a deep nostalgia hit for me. So it's like that is so cool. It's getting a remake. The Donkey Kong versus Mario, that one had a little bit of a lesser effect on me, but I'm assuming it has a lot of significance there because it kind of has the same style as the original Donkey Kong game, right? If I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, a little bit. It's
okay.
The series, well, we'll get into it, but yeah, I'll just say a little bit for now.
Yeah, and then I think the biggest thing for me is a lot of these titles I didn't have like a lot of nostalgia for, but they still just surprised me. Like the F-Zero 99 player thing, like that is just bonkers to me. I did not think that could ever be a thing, especially like the same style and everything, and just that screen of like all 99 racers on the track together. Like this is insane, but I still want to try it because it just looks really interesting, and the dopamine rush you would get from being that first place if you could ever get that.
Are you a Nintendo Switch Online subscriber?
We stopped subscribing to it recently, but you know you can always put in those credit card numbers. And then I mean it's not really a big surprise the news coming, but the Mario Kart just next DLC just telling us that it's coming. I think holiday season is what it said. That's always exciting because every DLC like release for that game is just a good excuse to jump back on it, and I've been super impressed by all the map packs that they've had released.
Did you buy that? You have access to that outside of the online?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we did that and love the Vancouver map. I like that we're getting
Vancouver Velocity. So
we're finally getting Diddy right in the game, if I'm not mistaken.
We're finally getting Diddy.
I think it said Peachette in there as a character, and I'm like, I have never heard of that before in my life. I don't think. What even is that?
She exists. Yeah, I googled that. She was introduced in 2019, so she is a fairly new character. She's appeared before, but this is the first time I heard of her, and I was like, "That's your last character you're adding is Peachette? Do we really need that? We already have Peach, Pink Gold Peach, Baby Peach," but they chose to do it.
And then sorry, the last one I wanted to mention was Prince of Persia. That one was
Okay.
a big surprise on it because I think recently in the pot must have been Sidequest we were mentioning Prince of Persia.
It's been at like so many
and
showcases. It's been
and very very impressed by the gameplay. It looks simplistic, but man, it looks fun. I just like the way that he was air dashing in there, the boss battles. It's not like the most beautiful game I've ever seen, but I think it just fits that gameplay so well. And
That's cool. Yeah, I think for me going into this, like when this was announced, I didn't even know if they would do a September direct this year. They usually do, but I thought this could be a year they skip, and only because I felt like in June they shown a bunch of fall releases and then even things like into 2024, which was weird to me. And I feel like Nintendo's changed their tune a bit where they had this, I feel like, ethos for a 2 or 3 year pocket there where they were really only showing things like 6 months at most a year out. And then, of course, there's a weird exception that slips through like Metroid Prime 4 or Zelda Tears of the Kingdom, that sort of thing. But for the most part, like they really stick to like showing games that are going to be imminently coming out. And so it was weird to me in that June showcase that they had like a bunch of 2024 things and like they didn't have dates for them. We didn't know when those things were coming. So all that to say that for the September direct, I'm like, I kind of feel like we already know what's coming. And yes, I know there's going to be a couple surprises in here, but for the most part, like we already know what's coming out in fall. We already know some of these 2024 things. So like, what is the point of this showcase here? And so that's where I can understand where people were underwhelmed by it. But I also, because of that, I had incredibly low expectations. And so I think they like slightly exceeded them. So I was like, all right, like this was solid. I had a good time here. There's some surprise announcements. A couple things got me pretty hyped. And yeah, there's some things in here that are puzzling to me as well. And they're just weird things that I'm curious to break down with you. So I had a good time with it for sure. But I also don't feel like there was a ton of big surprises with a couple exceptions. So I'm going to do this out of order. And if I skip anything, Kirkland, you can remind me. We can talk about it later on. But I want to start with just like bundling all the Mario things together because it's funny to me that like the Mario movie was out earlier this year and they didn't seem to have any sort of game to go with it. Like Mario Kart was the game where they were really pimping out as like, here's the bundle, like do this. That's what if you love the movie, that's how you play Mario right now. And it seems like they just had a bunch of things that like weren't quite ready because this year, the rest of this year and leading into next year, they're just smashing all sorts of Mario things out. So I find that timing very funny. But recently, or I guess, it was a few months ago now, but when the Mario movie, when leading up to that coming out, I did a episode here on Sidequest where I ranked the 40 Mario games that I've played in my life. And when I was doing that, I was, thinking back on a lot of Mario games I hadn't played in a while. And there was one that I was like very fond of. And for years, I've been trying to find my old cartridge for it, and I could never find it. And just this last weekend or 2 weekends ago, I was in Kelowna. I was digging around in the fucking crawl space of my parents' house, way deep in some box in a weird case. I finally found the cartridge again for Mario versus Donkey Kong.
Oh my gosh,
I've been
that's
looking
amazing.
for this thing. When I was doing that ranking, I really wanted to boot this game up again and just see if my nostalgia had lasted for it. But I was like, it's been bothering me so much for the last few months. I really
believe you
desperately
found
wanted
that.
this. Yeah,
You
and I
were
found
like
it in the fucking
Bilbo
depths
in
of
the
this
cave.
house.
Yeah,
Yes.
looking for that.
I had to bury through a bunch of trash to find this thing. So this funny. The timing of that is hilarious. That I finally found it just mere days ago, and then they announced here a remake of that game is coming to Nintendo Switch on February 26th. It's got some updated visuals, and then it's got some co-op. Those are the two kind of additions, but otherwise it's the same game. As far as the visuals go, I mean, this was like a GBA game that had really great pixel art, and I always loved the aesthetic of it. So this is kind of more of maybe a classic 3D sort of look for Mario. I think it still looks pretty good. I'm, of course, very partial to pixel art, but I think it does look good, and they've kept... This game had a very specific color palette. There's just like these darker blues and greens that you don't normally see in a Mario game, and it is a weird Mario game, so I feel like they've kept some of that. But to answer your question, the way this kind of goes is like, yeah, of course there was the original Donkey Kong like arcade game where Donkey Kong's up at the top of the fucking construction site and he's like throwing barrels down, and you play as Mario, who at the time I think is just considered, his name was just Jumpman. He wasn't Mario yet. And you're jumping over barrels, you go and save the princess at the top. And then that was what Donkey Kong was at first. And then all these Mario games came out. And then way on the Game Boy, they released this game called just called Donkey Kong, and it's kind of been dubbed Donkey Kong 94. And it was very much like this. It was like a game where you play as Mario, and it's like kind of a puzzle platformer sort of thing, but definitely a highlight on the puzzle where it's a similar situation where Donkey Kong's up top and he's maybe throwing things, and you're just picking up objects, you're throwing them around, you're grabbing the hammers and smashing things. And so that kind of sprouted a bit of a series, and then this was the next game, Mario versus Donkey Kong, which is like the sequel to that. And then they did some other ones where there was some weird spin-offs that I think on like DS and 3DS that very much changed what this series is. But it's been a weird series that I feel like has not ever been consistent for like 2 titles in a row. And I've not really played any of the other games. I really hope they add Donkey Kong 94 to Nintendo Switch Online, because that's desperately a game I want to play, and I didn't have the original Game Boy, so it's always one that's eluded me. But yeah, I've always loved Mario versus Donkey Kong, so it's cool to see it coming back in a big way. But it is curious, right? Because a few months ago, or maybe it was, I guess, close to, when the hell was it when they added the Game Boy Advance? I think it was a few months ago, sometime this year. They added the Game Boy Advance library to Nintendo Switch Online. It's weird to me that they didn't just put this on there, and instead they chose to do a remake for it. Do you have any, why do you think they did that? Because, like, did they really desperately need to update these visuals and give co-op to it? It seems like probably not. So it is a weird choice.
It is a very weird choice. I don't know why this specific title made them want to do that. Maybe they just knew that you were looking for it, and they were hoping that you weren't going to get it, so they could get your money. They're hoping there were a lot more people like you.
I did not find the cartridge.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's not like they have like a lot of new features to really incentivize you to want to jump through that, especially if you've already played the title. I feel like nostalgia is a powerful thing that maybe people want to relive those moments. But for a newcomer to the series like myself, the gameplay wasn't anything like, oh, I gotta jump on this right away. And if it was already on the Nintendo Switch Online, and let's say I had it already, I think that would have been enough to make me want to jump on there. But it is very like I want to know the reason why this specific one. Maybe they just pull it out of a hat and this is the one we're gonna remake.
Yeah, it's odd, right? Because like on the Nintendo Switch Online app for the GBA, they dropped Mario and Luigi, like Superstar Saga, whatever that game's called, which is like that RPG game. So it's like, I wonder, okay, why did they choose this one over that one, for example? If they just wanted to sell a Mario game because Mario's hot right now and Mario's going to make us money, why did they choose this one? Or why did they not also do that one? I guess I'm just really curious on that. And, a lot of the time this kind of thing happens because they want to, cheaply remake a game, give it some updated visuals, sell it, see how well it sells. If it sells really well, perfect. Now let's make a new one kind of thing. So maybe it's just that. They're just testing the waters. And if this is successful, they go ahead and make a new one. The game's not been dormant, or the series hasn't been dormant for too long, because there was ones on the 3DS. But they weren't quite like this in terms of the gameplay. I think they were a bit more gimmicky, more motion control-y, and that sort of thing. Whereas this is a puzzle. This is a puzzle-ass puzzle game. So I'd highly recommend it. Like, it is great, and I just boot it. Now that I have it again, I tried a couple levels, and it's still fun. And I want to play through it from the start and just go through the whole thing. This thing is $65 though when it's coming to Switch. That's really hard pill to swallow for this, in my opinion, with the kind of updates we're getting here. The visuals, it obviously looks nice, but like I think the original game looks just fine. And then for me, like the co-op is a weird thing where this is a puzzle game where like the levels are so small and contained and tight that I feel like throwing another player in there will just make it so trivially easy and take it into a sort of challenge. And it's not like they said that they're making new levels for co-op, like Portal or something. It seems like you can just like have Toad in there as a second player. So I don't know. I really want to get this to support it and them to make a new one, and because I love this original game. But like I do still have the original, and I don't feel like these updates are things that I really need access to. So I don't know if I'll be picking it up, and I'm kind of bummed because I really wanted them to put this game on NSO, and a bunch of people will be able to play it that way. But now I feel like with this price point, that's not going to be the case. You're going to have a select few people who probably have some sort of love for the original or looking for like a Mario puzzle game specifically pick this up. But I don't know if that's going to be a huge market.
Yeah. Oh, good point.
I think that's all on that one. Moving on, so Super Mario RPG, we already knew this was coming out November 17th, of course. And I don't know if there's a ton that they showed off here that was like new information necessarily. I think the big one for me was they said that there is like post-game boss rematches you can do that seem like a lot harder. So that's cool. It seems like they're adding like a bit of a hardcore sort of situation to the game, and I think that will be something good for the hardcore fans who have played this game for years and love it and are coming back to it, and they're also like, okay, trying to justify, like, do I need this new remake if it's the same game? But this seems like a good addition of adding challenge for players who love this game and are already really good at it and want something new that's going to push them. But then it's also just like something bonus for people who have never played this game before. Maybe they showed this before, but I didn't realize like Bowser's just one of the companions you can have in this game, and I think that's cool and fun, and I want to get him on my team. And then I mean, just when some of that music hits, like even though I'm not nostalgic for this game, I'm nostalgic for a lot of the music from this game, and so when a couple of those tracks hit, I'm just like, oh hell yeah, I can't wait for this. So I think me and Muds are definitely picking this up, and I'm excited to finally play it. This has been one of those huge games on the backlog for me that I've always wanted to knock off that list.
Yeah, this is one of those titles that I'd always heard about, but just never got the chance to play it. And just the fact that they have a Mario RPG game, like, is just really interesting to me. And like seeing the mechanics and everything, it's like, man, they really went for it here. And I don't know if I'm like completely sold on wanting to get it right now. But I mean, they could win me over because I completely agree with what you said. Like, I don't have nostalgia for the game, but nostalgia for the Mario isms and the music and all those things, and just capturing that magic, but throwing that spin of an RPG on it is definitely exciting. And I don't know. I thought it was a nice trailer, versus Mario versus Donkey Kong. I think this one is a lot more likely to get me wanting to spend like the full amount of a full price game.
Yeah. Next up, so Princess Peach Showtime, as you mentioned, is coming March 22nd. So this was, of course, shown in the June Direct, but it was very much like a tease, and they didn't even have a name for it. They just said, like, Princess Peach is getting the game. They showed, like, 5 seconds or something. So it was nice to get a lot more information here, and we got a lot. So, yeah, March 22nd is when this is coming out. Essentially, the setting of this game is that Princess Peach, or there's this stage play that's going on that's taken over by these new villains called the Wicked Grape and the Sour Bunch, which is just fun and stupid.
I love
it. It's so good. It's kind of like a Wicked Witch sort of character and some minions. They take over the stage play, and then as Princess Peach, you are transforming into these different modes, and you're, reclaiming the stage play, or you're putting on the show. I don't know exactly what it is. I don't know if you're saving the show or if you are the one making the show by doing the actions that you're doing it. Maybe it's kind of a little bit of both. But yeah, what did you think of this game? Now that we've seen a bunch of gameplay for it, I feel like they really gave us all the info you could want about this game.
I love this trailer. I loved it so much. I especially, like, Shay has a lot of attachment for, like I said, like that old Princess Peach game. So right away it's like, oh my god, they have a new Princess Peach title. And then we watch the trailer, and it looks super different than like other Mario games. I'm really excited to just have another Mario game centered around the character of Princess Peach, because I feel like she never really was my favorite character, but in recent years she's definitely grown. Like, she's much like any sports title. I'm playing Peach. Like, that is my character. So I'm like, we're definitely getting this one, and I just think, I don't know, it looks really whimsical to an extent. I really like the new cast of villains. Just their design is really unique and very different from other old school Mario villains that they've had in the past. And yeah, I don't know. I thought it looked really good too. For I don't know. Maybe I don't give Nintendo enough credit for how well they can actually like make these first party games rather. But this one definitely shined in all the right ways. I mean, Showtime, you got to be shining.
Yeah, no, I love that setting because this is something they've like done before. Like, technically, Super Mario Bros. 3 is like, when you boot that game up, it's like the whole thing is supposed to be like a stage play, and they're like pulling back the curtain, and that's like how the game starts. So it's all framed as like, did this adventure against Bowser actually happen, or everyone in this game is just an actor? Mario, Luigi, Peach, like all these characters are just actors in this stage play. So it's fun that they're sort of going back to this sort of setup, and I think it's interesting. It makes for an interesting setup, especially for this, because of course that was a 2D game, and you can really do that from that perspective, and it makes sense. But this is like a third person kind of action platforming game, but it still has that 2D camera very much, right? You're always looking in as like the audience. So I'm curious to see how that works and if like how good platforming feels with that setup. Like it could be a bit awkward, but then when you see the one platforming sequence where you're jumping around these different posts, like it seems pretty basic enough that it probably worked just fine. I'm sure it will. But yeah, the Peach modes, this is like the highlight for me. Like this is just so fun. You got Sword Fighter Peach, you got Detective Peach, you got Patissiere Peach, Kung Fu Peach, and it's like, man, I would take Sword Fighter Peach in Mario Kart over fucking Peachette any day of the week. I wish they like had incorporated one of these characters or like different costumes you could put on her Mario Kart version.
Oh, 100%. That was definitely like such a highlight of just seeing her different attire in there and just the different actions that she's doing with the fencing as well as the kung fu one. That was pretty badass.
Yeah, like a full-on 2D fighting game going on.
Yeah, like that's so sweet, and to throw Peach in there is really awesome because I mean obviously since her inception she's grown so much as of a character. She's not just the damsel in distress. So to see her in her own game like this, but just kicking ass. And yeah, I love the fencing one though with her hat and everything and the colors. It's like give me that in Smash or something. You know, like all that. That's so sweet.
I'd love to see a revised moveset for her in the next Smash game that incorporates stuff from this game. And yeah, so another funny thing I thought was that they have this new character named Stella, who's like a little star companion who helps Peach transform. But it's like, this is so similar to like the Rosalina Luma setup that I found it a bit... it's funny that they went to that same well again. Like, okay, let's give this princess character like a star type companion who helps you out with stuff. So I thought it was silly. I don't know if I'm picking this game up for sure yet. I'm going to talk to Muds if she wants to go half and half on. I could see myself picking it up. I think maybe my one, it's not really concern, but it's something I'm thinking about, is this game seems super easy and basic and very much intended for like a child audience in terms of like strictly the gameplay element of it. You know, I think there's an element from like all of us who are like Nintendo fans who like love to see Princess Peach getting her time to shine on the big, on the big stage there, and like that's a very exciting thing. But like gameplay wise, I like that there's a lot of variety there, but all of it does seem like super easy. Now, of course, this is just like a short trailer, only showing so much. But I have a slight fear right now that when I'm playing this game, I'm not actually like ever really going to get fully engaged by the like gameplay systems of it. And maybe that doesn't matter. Maybe it's a short little jaunt and I just get to spend an hour as Sword Fighter Peach, an hour as this Peach, and you know, that's enough of it for me. But yeah, that's maybe my one concern if I have any here. But I'm pretty impressed. I think this looks great.
Yeah, that is a good point. It definitely looks rather simple, and I doubt there's gonna be a new game plus you know, once you beat the game of this, making it a lot harder. But I don't know, I hope there's at least some interesting puzzles that it makes it a little bit not so much harder, just I don't know, makes you use your thinker as opposed to just holding the right button, because it's, you know, that side scroller element to it.
Exactly. Yeah. Luigi's Mansion 2 HD is coming out summer 2024, which is just like, why did they announce this now? Why did they announce this in June? It's once again, goes in that theory once again of like Nintendo not trying to announce things too far out for a remake or like a port even of a 3DS game. It's just it's really weird to me the way they're rolling this out. It's quite puzzling to me. So I'm curious what's up with that. But another puzzling thing is that this game was not called Luigi's Mansion 2 when it came out. This is Luigi's Mansion Dark Moon. And they have renamed it to Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. And they didn't even mention like anything about that. They just said like, this is Luigi's Mansion 2 HD. Like, they didn't say like renamed from Dark Moon or anything. So yeah, what do you think about that? Like, is it just because like Luigi's Mansion 3 is on the Switch now and they want to make it like very obviously and clear where this game is? I asked Travis about this and he was like, yeah, it's probably just because they don't want you to think it's like a spin-off, which I think is another good theory. But yeah, I don't know. It's weird. And if they put the original Luigi's Mansion on Switch, which I feel like is imminent at this point, are they just going to call that Luigi's Mansion 1? Or are they just going to call it Luigi's Mansion? Like, I don't know. I find that puzzling. Do you have any additional thoughts on like the renaming element of it?
Yeah, my only guess would be just for clarity's sake, like to not make it think that it's like the next one in the series or a different standalone. Just yeah, because like for me, if you just asked me like yesterday, like what's the name of Luigi's Mansion the sequel. I would have just been like, well, I don't know, Luigi's Mansion 2. Like, I'm not a big
Not
big
2
fan
HD?
of the standard SD. I'm definitely not like a big fan of the franchise. So I don't know if I just saw new Luigi's Mansion. I guess HD too. Like if it just had that, I would have thought it was just a remake of the original.
Right.
So just super easy Luigi Mansion 2 HD.
Ultimately, I don't think it matters at all. I just found it interesting that they decided to make that decision whatsoever.
Because it still is Dark Moon, right? Like
yeah,
it is
it's
still,
the same game with improved visuals, which to me, I think that's one of the disappointing things here is like Luigi's Mansion 3 is one of the best looking Switch games. That game looks fucking phenomenal. The lighting's great. The level of detail is great. This game does not look very good. Like they really half-assed it with the visuals, and maybe they found themselves struggling when it came to up-resing a 3DS game. Because even like I feel like some of the GameCube ports have had better looking visuals when they try to, like even Paper Mario and Thousand Year Door I think has a better visual overhaul than something like this. And then I guess the other new thing here that I don't think they showed off in the June Direct was that there's 4-player online co-op, and maybe that was a thing in the 3DS game, so maybe that's not new information. I haven't played that game yet, though I did buy it somewhat recently. I think I talked about that on Sidequest. So yeah, this is definitely not a purchase for me because I have that 3DS one and I'm going to go play it there. But yeah, any thoughts on this one, and what's up with that like summer 2024 release date? Like, why is this taking so long, or is that just like what they chose to do as the release date?
I have no idea why they would even say it here. Like, I'm assuming there's gonna be another direct between now and next summer. So, like, have that big exciting just release date, I guess. But
I mean, they might have put it here because they did it in June, and that might be the only reason why they did it now is because they already had announced it. But then it goes back to like, well, why'd you do that in June?
Shift
Maybe they
that
thought
whole
it'd
thing
be ready
forward.
A lot quicker. Yeah.
Like have that first announcement now, and then the follow up. Then it's like, we're ramping up to it, but. Very, very bizarre. You know, jot down as another classic Nintendo decision. Just
being weird.
Yeah.
And then, Mario Kart 8 is the last DLC. They did say the final DLC. I wondered if when we got the announcement of the final DLC, it would say, and we're doing more courses. Here's, round 2 of this thing.
Right.
But it seems like they are finally winding down with it. Of course, they could backpedal on that and change their mind afterwards. But for now, this seems to be the last one. They only showed off one course here, Daisy Circuit from the Wii. I'm sure we'll get a couple more tour courses that we haven't seen yet, along with maybe one new course and then just other remakes. I'm sure that'll be the setup. But yeah, we only got one course so far. But then we got the final set of characters, Diddy Kong, Funky Kong, who have appeared in previous games, and then Pauline and Peachette, who maybe were in tour, but otherwise have not been in like a mainline game. But yeah, obviously I've been saying on SideQuest for like 2 years now, I feel like that. If they're adding new characters to this, I want Diddy Kong. I want Diddy Kong so bad. He deserves to be in these spin-off games. He's been in them before. He was in the GameCube one. He was in the Wii version. Why is my boy getting, sidelined here? So very glad to see Diddy Kong back. I can't wait to check him out. And Funky Kong, too, is a great addition because just in general, I just want more Donkey Kong content in these Mario games and in like Smash and stuff. I don't know why Donkey Kong stuff seems to be sidelined so much. So I'm really excited to have a couple new characters there. And then, I think Pauline was like my 100% guess prediction. Like, I feel probably everyone was guessing that was going to be a DLC character. Just made too much sense for where that character's popularity is at right now. And then Peachette is the weird wild card. So, I was hoping for another third-party appearance, especially because, like, this was a theory because on the character select screen, the bottom row is, like, the Inklings are there, Link is there, the Animal Crossing characters are there, the Mii is there. So it's like, it would kind of make sense if they put another weird third party there, like a Kirby or Fox or Captain Falcon, something like that. So it's a bit disappointing that instead they just went with Peachette, which is a bit of a boring pick for me. I know some people are going to be into that for sure, but I got my 2 Donkey Kong characters, so I really can't complain. I'll be busy with them anyway, so yeah.
That's super exciting about the Donkey Kong characters. As you said, Diddy Kong deserves to be on there. Funky Kong, I love that pick. I love that pick, man.
Yeah,
like
he's been there before too, so it is a very much like the Smash, like everyone's here moment. It's good to bring him back in.
I could definitely see myself like even over Diddy Kong. I don't know what it is. I just feel like I could see myself picking Funky
He's cool.
Kong.
He's a cool
I like
guy.
his look.
What can you say?
He's funky, man. I like his shades. He's looking badass. Pauline though, like who is this character? I had to Google her because I've heard the name for sure, but as soon as I see her, it's just like I don't know what game she's from.
I think technically she was introduced in like a Mario game a really, really long time ago, just like in the pixel art days when it's like you couldn't even really tell the characters apart. But then her big time on the main stage there was in Super Mario Odyssey. She was like singing the main theme. She's like a big character in there. And then since then, she's been just very much appearing in the spin-off stuff. Like she was a DLC character as well as Diddy Kong was in Mario Strikers Battle League. She was a DLC addition to Mario Golf on the Switch. I assume she's in Aces, but Mario Tennis Aces. I'm not too sure about that. So yeah, she's kind of making her rounds here now. So I feel like this is the next logical step. She had to be there. So yeah, I'm curious what's next for her. And like, obviously, we don't even know what the next 3D Mario game is going to be. If it's an Odyssey 2, I'm sure she'll be a big part of it as well. But if not, I'm wondering if she's still going to weasel her way in there and be a character that persists. But yeah, she's kind of just like the newest, Peach or Rosalina kind of character. Right. Not really a princess. She's got her own different vibe, but yeah, it's cool to see her in here.
Yeah, no, for sure.
Yeah.
And can't wait to jump back into Mario Kart.
Yeah, there you go. And then, the last Mario thing from this Direct was Paper Mario 1,000 Year Door. This closed it out. This is coming out next year. This is, of course, a just enhanced graphics version of the GameCube release. No really other information if there's other new content added. I don't think it's a game that needs any sort of new content. Maybe just some quality of life changes, and then I guess it would now be full screen instead of like the 4:3 resolution. Like that kind of thing happens too naturally. But yeah, I think this seems like one of those games that you don't need to change at all, and you can just put it out there and people will buy it. And yeah, this is another huge backlog blind spot for me. This is like what almost everyone says is the best Paper Mario game, one of the best GameCube games, and so I'm into all that stuff. So yeah, I could very much see myself picking this one up, even if it's $80. I honestly might just still pick it up. I just love GameCube era stuff, and this is once again huge backlog thing for me. So I am very, very excited by this. I think this is a cool announcement, and once again, like they're just rolling out that GameCube shit. Bat and Kaidos is coming out. They did Pikmin 1 and 2. Like they're really going hard on the GameCube re-releases, which I love to see, and I'm wondering if Melee is ever going to happen at this point.
Hey, never say never, right? Yeah, Paper Mario, as I already said, my only experience was at McDonald's back in the day, and it is definitely powerful nostalgia playing that. At the time, I just thought it was so fascinating and unique, and just I don't know, like a really cool idea to have on the Mario era, but also for the GameCube. Like I just feel like for the simple like paper graphics, it looked so ahead of its time, even though it wasn't like 3D or anything. So just a really cool concept that I'm glad to hear that they're re-releasing. And do you know top of your head like how many Paper Mario games there were? Because I don't know if this is the one that I played or if it was a different one. Maybe I'll pull them up actually.
There are, I believe, 6 games in the series.
Oh, wow.
There was Paper Mario on the N64, I think was the first one, and then there was this 1,000 Year Door, and then there was Super Paper Mario on the Wii. And I think those are all very much the same traditional Paper Mario stuff. And then there was ones on maybe the DS and 3DS. There was like Paper Mario Sticker Star, Paper Mario Color Splash, and I think those were more like weird spin-off games that people weren't super into because they weren't even like big RPG things anymore. They were just like weird things that were using the Paper Mario character. And then, of course, there was Origami King, the new one on the Switch, which seemed to be a bit of a return to form in that it was not the weird Color Splash stuff. It was like a more traditional RPG in that way. And I think some people still felt like it wasn't as deep or interesting or as well written as the like 1,000 Year Door, for example. But it was, from what I understood, like at least an improvement from those 2 kind of weird spin-offs they did.
Okay, yeah. So then 1,000 Year Door would have been the one that I played since it was on GameCube, and yeah, great title.
Yeah, I think I played Paper Mario on the N64. Like you could rent it like a hotel I was staying at as a kid. Do you ever have that? You could rent it for like a half an hour or an hour.
It had
like
the remote like right there next to the.
Right. Yeah. It was like locked or something. I forget how it worked exactly, but yeah, and then, like it's weird to me like that you played that at McDonald's and I played this one there. It's like those are the worst games to just play for like a half an hour, like they're not just a fun jump
deep
and play.
RPG.
Yeah, it's like with a huge narrative focus that probably has a super slow intro. Like it seems like a really bad mix for those kind of things, but for whatever reason they put them in those places nonetheless. You'd think it would just be Mario Kart and Smash and those sort of games, but I'm sure they also did those ones. Yeah, moving on here. Did you want to say anything else about Prince of Persia? I just feel like we've talked about a lot on Sidequest, but if you have anything else that you want to mention on it.
Nothing else to mention. Is just to actually see it here. It's awesome to see because franchise it ain't quite dead yet.
Yeah, not dead. War Tales is a game that I've had on my Steam wish list for like a couple of years now. So I was surprised to see it here because it definitely seems like a hardcore like PC RPG tactics sort of situation. So it was interesting that it's coming to Switch, and this was an out today thing, so it's of course out now. And yeah, I don't know what it is about it. I just think it seems like it's a really fun kind of fantasy exploration. I think one of the things I really like about it is it seems like you are picking a party and you're like, the travel sequence is a big part of the game, of traveling through these lands slowly, picking the perfect party, and then you're going into like these tactics battles, which I'm into all of that stuff. So it very much looks like it's a game for me. I gotta say, I've always thought this game on Steam was like graphically really great, looked amazing, really high quality, really good art style. The Switch version looked pretty fucking horrendous, I gotta say. So I don't think this seems like more of a PC game for me anyways. I don't think I'll be picking it up here, but it's cool. This is a timed console exclusive, so I'm sure it's coming to other stuff later, but hopefully it runs well. I mean, it seems like it's slow enough that hopefully frame rate's pretty good, but I gotta say, just visually, I don't know, maybe the Steam version doesn't look as good as I think it does, but the screenshots look amazing.
It looks better. It looks better.
Yeah.
I have like side by side. I'm looking at it. It's like, oh my gosh, they definitely got rid of some textures.
Looks like a GameCube port or something without an enhance. Yeah. So any thought? Because I feel like that's in the Kirkland wheelhouse. Any
oh
interest in
yeah,
that one?
absolutely. Just seeing like the trailer on the direct there, it just seemed super in depth and interesting for me. I feel like it came too close to. Oh my gosh, I forget the title now. I think it was the last side quest I was on. Actually, it was that similar style where you have your survival aspect, but you're on a train and you have like your crew and you're trying to keep morale up. Totally forget the name of it, but that one is still on my radar. So I think that would probably be my next strategy game that I'd want to pick up. But still, it looks really, really cool, and I like the era that it's in and everything that you said. Yeah, I agree.
There's this new game announced called Unicorn Overlord, which I think is one of the worst video game titles I've ever heard in my life.
It reminds me of like an old like iPhone or iPod Touch game or something that you just play on like the bus.
Yeah, and I would not expect that game to look like this. Like this is like a full-on like JRPG tactics game, but it just doesn't roll off the tongue. It's kind of cringe. Like it's just overall not a great title, but the game itself actually looks really good. It's a tactical. To me, I almost got like 4X sort of strategy vibes for parts of it. Maybe like Heroes of Might and Magic sort of thing. But then there's like, you have turn-based RPG battles and maybe a little bit of tactics element in there. And there's a lot of different characters and RPG stuff. I'm sure like a big story of like warring nations and a 1,000-year war, all that kind of generic stuff. Randomly, the food looked amazing in this game. The art style is kind of weird because you kind of have like a bit of a triangle strategy sort of world map sort of look, but then it has like sprite designs that are 2D and like a Paper Mario sort of way. But then you have these 3D elements like the food that just looks super highly detailed and different. So a very weird mix of art styles there. So I definitely got to see more on this one before I decide if it's a pickup for me. But it definitely is ticking a few of the boxes of games that I'm generally interested in. So aside from the title, I think this looks great.
Yeah, this one wasn't doing too much for me. I think the strategy element is interesting, but like actually like the screen of all the different art styles like together, I think it was just a little bit too much for me. It is a little overwhelming. Hated the title. I agree with that, but yeah.
I'm really curious about these next two games because you did not mention these in your kind of highlights, but I wanted to get this information from you.
I think I know which ones you're bringing up. Yeah,
two League of Legends kind of games. So the first one is a game called Bandle Tale, a League of Legends story. This is coming out next year. Very, very cute pixel art. I love the color palette here, and this seems like very much like a Stardew Valley like game where you're crafting, you're building out a town, you're going around doing wholesome shit, all that sort of stuff. And I'll just roll them both here in kind of one section. And then the other one's called Song of Nunu, a League of Legends story as well. And this is like more of a companion-based platformer, it looks like, or maybe more adventure, maybe not so much platformer, but more just like a linear story adventure sort of game. But yeah, obviously this is coming out in November 1st. So as the resident League of Legends diehard fan of the podcast, curious what these two games do for you, because obviously there's been a few of these League of Legends story like spin-off games recently, and I think they've always looked mediocre, and I think Song of Nunu doesn't really look like that great to me. But Bandletale, I think, looks fantastic, and it seems like a game that's really on the precipice of like what's popular right now. So yeah, as a League of Legends fan, where are you at with these two?
Yeah, it's funny because I feel like when I first got into League of Legends, like more so than the gameplay and just everything about it, I was just so fascinated by the lore that they introduced. And at that time, there was fuck all for lore. It was literally like the character bio, and then in there maybe they would like mention that it's like somewhat related to another character. So then you go to like that character's bio, and there was like absolutely nothing for it. And then I remember when I think it was the 10-year anniversary. Actually, that's when they announced like Valorant. That they announced that they were just expanding like the universe and like telling these different stories. I think they were announcing like just the different stories that they had. I don't even think like Arcane was mentioned yet at that time, but just promises to expand further on the lore. And it, like that was like 8 years after I'd probably already like played the game. It's just funny. It's like, man, they got me a little late here because I haven't really dove too deep on any of these aspects like the previous games. There was one on like the Ruined King. Yeah.
There's a fighting game that I think is still coming out, but hasn't come out yet. Maybe
Soul Fighter, is that what it is? I don't know. Definitely a fighter game. You're not wrong there. And like I'm so glad that it is a thing because although like I'm not as into the lore as I once was, I still find it really interesting, and the fact that they're expanding on it and just telling these different stories is, I think it's fantastic, because even if you don't like League of Legends, like the actual game, I think it has some really, really fantastic characters in it, and just, I mean, like one of them being like the Yordles from Bandle City, which is like, of course, like the what you see there.
Guy that you're playing
yeah. Well, so like the Yordles, that's like the race of creatures that are like those little
they were
fur.
in Arcane, right?
So Heimerdinger, he was a Yordle.
Okay, it's all coming together for me now.
Yeah, exactly.
Arcane,
like Teemo, like many people know that character.
Teemo,
He's the one with the blow darts. Like just these little furry creatures, and like they have their own world that's very magical, and you're diving into it right there, like Bandle Tail. That's the title, right? Yeah, Bandle Tail, and it just looked so cute. And what I love about these games that they're doing, whether it's the Ruined King or Song of Nunu or Bandle, is just like it's so different from what the actual gameplay is of League of Legends,
and also different from each other. Like
you have
no idea that they come from the same IP.
Yeah, exactly, and I love that. I hope they keep doing that stuff. Even the show Arcane, like you wouldn't see Arcane and then watch and then play Bandle Tail and think that they're attached unless you knew about the Yordle. So that's fantastic to me. And out of these two, Bandle Tail definitely was the one that it was just kind of tugging at my heartstrings. Like I just looked so cute and wholesome. Reminded me a little bit of Tunic for like I guess the art style. It is very different. Like I think. I mean, you played Tunic. That one's not so much like the what would you call it, asymmetric view where you're kind of looking at an angle. Isometric. There you go. So it looked really, really cute, and the crafting elements, the little fishing that you're doing, interacting with different Yordles that if you played like League of Legends, you would recognize them. I saw Lulu in there. I think I saw like basically all of them. Rumble, like so I could see myself at least playing that one, and hopefully I would be able to get Shay on that one too, because it just seems like the type of game that she's played in the past. She's a big Stardew Valley fan. It just seemed to capture that same element where it's not like high stakes. It looks like pretty low key. Some nice music in there, but I think the biggest thing is the art style. It just looks so cute, and like through playing League of Legends, you interact with Yordles, and it's just like, I wonder what Bandle City kind of looks like, or where these Yordles come from. But to see this, it's like, holy crap, this is not what I pictured. This is like a Disney Disney adventure that I'm going on here. And then I guess since we brought it up, Song of Nunu, like it just didn't really.
Are those characters you're fond of?
Yeah, so Nunu and Willump, that's one character that you'd play as. So Nunu is the little guy, and then Willump is the big Yeti, and then Nunu rides on Willump's back, like as a gameplay element. And like it's not like it looked bad. Like I did like the art style. It's very different than Bandle Tale, but I still like the art style. It's just doesn't seem like the type of game that I'm really playing these days. We saw Braum in there. He's the dude with the big shield. So again, just some familiar faces. Definitely more Freljordian elements. That's the era of the world that these characters are from. So expect to be interacting with them. But I just really liked the I don't know what you would call it, like the palettes, I guess, of the art style. Like it just seemed. I'm trying to think of a game that it reminded me of, but definitely familiar art style.
It reminded me of Brothers, a Tale of Two Sons, whatever that game was called. Do you remember that one? I don't know if I feel like I've talked to you about that game before.
Yeah,
that was the game from It Takes Two, like that studio's game from like years past, where you'd have like each control stick controlled one of the two brothers, and it was like a co-op game. But
I remember you telling me about it.
Played it as one player. Yeah, I feel like it looked very much like that in terms of the camera angle, how far the camera was zoomed out, in terms of the kind of gameplay and whatnot. That was the vibe I got, but it definitely seemed a bit old in terms of the graphical fidelity. At least, not that every game needs to be some 4K masterwork or something, but I think it kind of shows, like with something like Bandle Tale, that looks like modern and beautiful, even though it's a pixel art game. Whereas this, sometimes 3D is like harder, I guess, to get as much detail in that way, especially if it's a Switch game. We're just talking about War Tales, that was looking a little rough.
It reminded me of like an early. I was going to almost say 360 era, but it reminded me of like an early PS4 era game, which still isn't fantastic, but I don't know. It has some cuteness to it.
Yeah. There we go. And then moving on, Wargroove 2 is coming out October 5th, which is like sooner than I thought. I don't know why I thought this game was further on down the road, but I think they really waited a while to announce it. And then it's like they announced it just a few months ago. Here it is, coming out soon. In terms of the new stuff for this game, I guess actually quick backstory. I love the first Wargroove game. I really, really enjoyed. It's got like this very long campaign that's really good. And then it's got some great puzzle modes. There's like a full map editor. You can make campaigns. So it was just like a game that had so much to it. And you could even do like versus battles with your friends. Like it's just such a crazy for an indie game to be like that ambitious and like nail all these different elements to it. I think I did a review for that one. So maybe I'll have to find that review, dig it out of the hard drive there and re-release that before the release of this game. For the new stuff going on here, there's a new faction, which is like, just visually something cool, different. Of course, there's new units, a new campaign and all that. The biggest of the new things, I think, for me is like the roguelike mode is one of the new things they have in here. So obviously, as a big fan of Into the Breach, which is a tactics roguelike game, I'm very curious to see what Wargroove would do. But I just got to say that the release date of this, it's too soon for me. I feel like I need this to actually come out next year because I just played a bunch of Advance Wars 1+2 Reboot Camp. I'm still playing through that. I still have a bunch of missions to do, and I am slowly, like, just every once in a while I'll go through and bump through a couple levels. And I just feel like I have so many other tactics games on the go. I played so much Midnight Suns this year. Last year I played a bunch of Triangle Strategy, so I just feel a little burnt out on the genre right now, and especially because Wargroove is very much like an homage to Advance Wars specifically, and I've played so much of that this year, and I still want to play more of the game I already own, that I just don't think I have the bandwidth for Wargroove 2 this year, unfortunately. So it might sit on the shelf a bit for me, or maybe I'll just pick it up and check out a little bit of it and then play more of it later. I think I could see myself just picking it up and honestly just playing the roguelike mode for a few months and just get to the campaign later on, especially because I already know how the mechanics work, so I can just get into the more hardcore stuff. But in terms of like being a sequel, it seems like the first game already did everything, so it's hard to like do better than that. But it seems like they are still trying their best to overcome that in a big way, and there's some cool new units that I saw in there. So it looks great. I'm just not ready for it, unfortunately, is kind of where I'm at. But Kirkland, I know you're a fan of this genre as well, but is this doing anything for you?
I think it was like the large scale element of it was really interesting. I don't know if I was looking at a screenshot from the first game or the second game, but it just seemed like there were so many more units than I was actually maybe expecting there to be. And
it feels like a lot more of a war sometimes than Fire.
Yeah, and
feel a bit more contained.
That's really cool because I feel like most titles that are like this or maybe similar genres, they kind of have one unit, the equivalent of like I don't know, 20 units or something, like just to make it simple in that aspect. So that's really fascinating. I got a backlog of tactics games to play. I still got to finish Midnight Suns one of these days. Do. So please. I'm gonna stay away from Wargroove on this one.
Yeah, fair enough. And then the last thing for me to shout out here is F-Zero 99. So we've been obviously waiting years and years and years and years for a new F-Zero game, and I think for a lot of F-Zero fans, this maybe is not necessarily what you wanted, but I think for other people who are open to some other weirdo stuff, this is like, okay, cool. I'm getting new F-Zero, and it's not exactly what I was hoping for, but in that way that you mentioned kind of at the top with your thoughts, it's like, this is just so weird and zany and crazy that it's like you can't be mad at it. Like, it is so cool that they are doing this, and obviously, like, they did Tetris 99 was the first one, which these are all Nintendo Switch online games, part of that service, and they had Pac-Man 99, they had Super Mario 35, which has been delisted, and I think Pac-Man's maybe delisted now too. I don't know if you can play those anymore. Tetris 99 is still popping off and getting new cups and all this stuff all the time. But yeah, this is the latest and greatest one of those, F-Zero 99. So it's very much the SNES or Game Boy Advanced era of F-Zero, but it's just there's 99 cars on the road and you're going ham, and there's a couple new features in there, but it very much follows that same sort of setting that the Tetris 99 format kind of established with the Battle Royale situation. So this was an out-today title. Of course, that was a few days ago, so I've played a bunch of this. Well, I shouldn't say a bunch. I've played probably 10 matches of this over the course of the last few days. And there's two sides to it where I think this is very cool and fun, and I love the idea. But also, the SNES F-Zero is like just my least favorite F-Zero. Like, I've never enjoyed it. I've always thought it looked kind of ugly. I don't think it's a very fun racing game. F-Zero X on the N64 is definitely my pocket, my space. That's where I'm most fond of the series. And so I'm getting a bit of that again where I'm like, I just don't really like controlling this game a whole lot. And I love the sprites for the cars, but I don't really like the look of the maps or the worlds. I think they're a bit bland. And it's like, oh, this is technically Mute City, but it looks the exact same as any other map. So it's not that exciting. But yeah, there are those moments when there's just fucking 50 cars in one clump and they're all smashed into each other. And it is kind of perfect because on the N64, one of my favorite modes in that game was called Death Race, I think, and it was just like this one loop. So there was no turns at any point, and it was just a map that had no edges to it except for maybe one section where you could get your boost back. And then it was just a death race, and you just had to outlast the other cars by doing that spinny attack, by hitting cars off the road, by smashing into them, outlasting them. And it's like, that was a Battle Royale mode that, of course, was a single-player game, so you played against CPUs. It had like 30 cars, and it was insane. And F-Zero's always had a ton of racers on the road compared to like a Mario Kart, for example. So it's like, it actually is so perfect, but part of me also wishes that like that mode from N64 was the thing that was getting this treatment instead of the era of F-Zero that I don't really care about, unfortunately. So I'll probably play a couple more every once in a while, jump in for a bit, but like, I honestly don't really love it that much, but I'm happy for the fans who are getting a kick out of it. So that's how I feel. A little conflicted, unfortunately.
They should have capitalized on the Battle Royale aspect because that's just such a relevant genre of games, you know. Like I feel like it's not the peak that it once was in the early Battle Royale era of like when Fortnite was really popping off, first Warzone, PUBG, like that era. But yeah, I don't know, like because it looks super crazy. I feel like I would want to try a couple matches, but I don't think it has the longevity, unfortunately, that maybe they were hoping.
Yeah, unfortunately, I don't feel like this game is going to be popular for very long, and that's always the struggle of a game that requires 99 players to start. Of course, you can throw a CPU in there or start a game with 60 players. Like, I'm sure they can do that on the server side, but like naturally, you need a ton of people to be able for people to get lobbies consistently and not have to wait. And I imagine Tetris 99 is still like pretty quick to get into a match because that game's been popping off. But I'm sure that's one of the reasons why they, I think, stopped doing Pac-Man 99. I'm assuming they did that. I feel like I heard that news at some point. It's because like eventually players get a bit bored of it, and Tetris is so timeless. And yeah, like there isn't a ton of mechanics in here. Maybe things unlock or open up as you get further in. But it felt like after the first 3 or 4 matches, it's like, okay, I've kind of seen all the mechanics that are going to exist here. And so maybe I'm wrong about that. Maybe I need to see more, and I need to hear some other people's impressions or thoughts on it to find out what I'm missing. But I think there also is an element to it where I'm just awful at this game. I'm just getting trashed. I'm consistently in the 60 to 70 range. And rather than it being a battle to the end, like people will get eliminated and get knocked out. And I guess technically you could have the situation where only one player is standing, everyone else's car is exploded. But most of the time ends up just being that like you finish the race after 4 laps and then there's still 60 players alive and it's just whatever position you got. So yeah, I don't know if it would be better if it was a destruction derby because that could take forever, and the matches are very snappy and quick because, you know, they are set on the laps. But yeah, I think that's all I have to say on that one, unfortunately.
Yeah,
I'm curious what it means for the future of F-Zero, though. Like if Like the fact that they went back to it finally after all these years. They made new F-Zero games, so I'm curious what the next thing is. I think porting the GameCube one would be great. I'm pretty sure F-Zero X is on Nintendo Switch Online right now, so it's getting a slight resurgence here. But I'd love to see that GameCube one, and then if that's successful, they could maybe make a new one at that point. That's what I'd like to see. Kirkland, was there any game I didn't mention? Recap there.
WarioWare.
Right.
That one just had a lot of like fun little mini games that would just be a good like 24-hour stream game. Like probably some Gauntlet titles in there.
So
Yeah, yeah. So I don't know. It looked fun. I don't think I would want to just buy it day one, but I definitely want to play it. The other title being, which I don't even know how to say it. Ayuden Chronicles. Ayuden. It really impressed me. The trailer. I think it was a mixture of the actual gameplay, the characters that were shown, what it is. Like you've mentioned. What is it? Suikoden.
Yeah, this is from the developers of Suikoden, the original team.
Suikoden.
Yeah.
So I've heard of that game from you. So obviously it's got a big following if they're making this one here, and I just thought it was a really impressive showcase of it. I don't know. It's probably not one that I'll honestly probably I probably won't ever even play this game, but it just looked really, really impressive.
You're happy it exists.
Yeah, exactly. Just like the different animations when they're fighting there. I don't know. It just caught my eye and made me want to like research it a little bit. I threw it into the Google, one might say.
Love that. Yeah, and really just to close it out here, now that we've got this direct, we kind of have the I'd say it's set in stone what Nintendo's fall is looking like. So yeah, a recap on that would be that F-Zero 99 just came out. We're getting WarioWare, Super Mario Wonder, Super Mario RPG, Detective Pikachu, which we didn't talk about, had a new trailer here, and then I believe the DLC for Pokemon Violet and Scarlet is also coming out. So you maybe don't have that like tier 1 thing. I mean, I guess Super Mario Wonder would be in that tier, but I think it's like this is still a pretty solid fall, even if things have seemed a bit quiet, or maybe not every game's for everyone, but I feel like they have a good mix here of some fairly big like first party things. So ends up being like another great year for Nintendo. Year after year after year, the Switch is just absolutely crushing it. They have so much great stuff to release. So yeah, very excited to see the results of some of those games, hear some impressions and whatnot. But yeah, I think that's pretty much it for today, Kirkland. This was a spicy one. I figured it'd be around the 2.5 hour mark or more. So
look at that. Right at 2.5. That was clean.
Yeah, look at that. But yeah, any final thoughts from here today before we say goodbye?
No, I don't think so. I'm excited to keep updating on my Marvel Snap journey, and
yes, Mortal Kombat next week.
Definitely gonna be playing Sea of Stars, actually,
nice.
knowing that
Cool.
knowing that I have access to it, so that'll be exciting to jump in. And every single time I come on here, you give me a game that I've never heard of before, and I'm just interested in it. So it's always a special time.
No, I'm glad. Because I do feel like this year I've definitely had a lot less of those games that I've been playing. There's just been less of those indie oddities that have been calling to me, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm glad that Sea of Stars is finally out, and it's living up to the hype that I had expected for it. So there you go, everyone. That's this week. Next week is all going to be all about Mortal Kombat. Maybe some other news or games we've been playing in there, but mostly that Mortal Kombat train. So very excited to have that discussion with you, Kirkland. Thank you, everyone, for listening. We'll see you again next time. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.